for that great introduction. And I think we have entertainment tonight. Yeah, so definitely worth sticking around. We have some live entertainment. It's going to be a lot of fun, music, dancing. Well, you'll have to wait and you have to come and find out. All right. Yes. Does that count for swag? All right. Okay, so welcome. Yeah, so again, I wanted to thank Google and Coinbase for showing up and for MetaMask for being here. We're at a crossroads. We're at a very interesting and opportune moment. And we are here in the Bay Area, which is the epicenter, as you all know, for, for AI. If you look at the amount of funding that's going on, it doesn't even come close. I mean, you know, the Bay Area is at like 67 billion. New York's the next closest at 5 billion in funding. So AI is happening here. And in fact, it's happening here in the Presidio too. We are here at the house, Web3. I've gotten so many comments from people that are just, you know, admiring the space and the beautiful greenery we have around. And when we moved here back in 2022, it was kind of the tail end of COVID. 21, wow, time flies. So yeah, there was a lot of vacancy here. No one, you know, a lot of people had left San Francisco. It was kind of a dark time. And we kind of planted the flag here because we were saying, okay, San Francisco, we believed in the city, the staying power. We wanted to show that, you know, we were still here, we're still building, and kind of things have turned around, as you've all noticed. Come on in. Yep. And yeah, we sort of hit the mark because now the Presidio is like the new hotspot. They're calling it the new kind of Sand Hill Road. There's a lot of VCs here, and you know, here we are at the house. So I'm going to spill some tea for you all here today and watching online that we are going to rebrand the House of Web3 to just the house. We're dropping the Web3 part because over the course of these years, we've noticed so many AI projects coming on, and they're like, is this just for Web3 people? And we're like, no, actually, no. We want to welcome one, welcome all. And today what we're talking about is the intersection of AI and Web3. So really, this is the time where these two technologies are coming together. And so we want the house to be kind of the epicenter of that. So that will be forthcoming very soon. We're changing all the branding, logos, signage. There's a lot to do, but yeah, you heard it here first. So welcome all AI startups and founders and builders and all Web3 people, because we want to work together. And as you'll see today, there's a lot happening in this space and a lot that we can do together to further this, because it's going to be huge. So I'm Rodrigo, CEO of Edge and Node. I've been here from the very beginning. I was the first employee back in 2018 and have been working on the Graph, which is an indexing protocol for blockchain data. And earlier this year, we sort of ventured into the AI realm, which I'll get into. But yeah, we've launched these products called Ampersand and AMP. One is delving into really the depths of blockchain data, and then Ampersand, which I'm going to be getting into, gets into agentic commerce. And really the two, you know, Ampersand uses AMP, and so it really is a marriage of Web3 and AI technologies, which you'll soon to understand. So today I'm going to be talking about oversight and control in the agentic economy. So as you all know, we're on the cusp of a revolution here. X402 is only about 6 months old. It seems like it's been around longer, but it's really, and in fact, it's really just taken off in like the last month. And yeah, just in the last 30 days, there's been 69 million transactions. So it's really ramping up, but these numbers, you know, in a few years are going to seem so tiny. It's going to be billions of transactions, eventually trillions. So AI intelligence is doubling every 7 months. So I can recall when, Chat GPT-3 came out, GPT-2, and it was like mind-blowing. And then we started playing around with it, and just look how far we've come in this short amount of time. So imagine this, what we're seeing is every 6 months, doubling again and doubling again. Like Moore's law has maintained true over time. So we have a hard time, as we know, humans, with exponentials. So imagine your intelligence doubling every 6 months. The amount you knew every 6 months doubling. So this is going to get extremely exciting very fast, and I think it's going to surprise us all. Come on in. Have a seat. So as Nicole mentioned, Gartner mentioned in their report, there's going to be 30 trillion in purchases influenced or made by AI agents. This is a huge number. Again, we're dealing in exponentials. It sounds like a huge number now, but we're going to find that in short amount of time, we'll be probably exceeding these numbers faster than we can imagine. This is a tweet that's been shared and talked about. I'm not sure if all of you have seen it, but so we're talking about X402 and that it enables agents to pay themselves, and they can autonomously chain services into economic loops. So as stated in the tweet here, an agent might fetch social context from Nanar, generate a viral video, post it to Base, monetize it, and then use the revenue to buy more inference. So it's paying for its own existence. So this kind of computer program that we call an agent is going out and taking actions. And you could say, you could give it some money and say, do what you need to do to survive. And this thing will figure out how to continue to live, or do what you need to do to make more money. And it's going to go and hunt. And I really like this analogy. It's a proto-digital life form. So you could envision these, we've kind of spawned these proto-digital life forms that are taking on lives of their own, and now they have money, and so they can go out and take actions themselves without our intervention. So it could be really, in one direction is really handy, but in the other direction could also be really scary. So that's why we need oversight and control. So what emerges from this? This is also a paper that's been shared quite a bit called Virtual Agent Economies. It's by the folks at Google. These are some of the smartest people in the world. Google acquired DeepMind, and they've got PhD level thinkers working on this stuff. You can Google, sorry I didn't include a QR code to the link, but if you're interested in reading the paper, you can just search for that title. And so what these thinkers have come together as far as where's this leading us. So we're going to have a layer of markets where agents transact, negotiate, and coordinate with each other and with humans. So auctions for compute, data, tools, and other resources. So envisioning these proto life forms negotiating with each other and trying to get the best deal. And oh, I didn't get a good deal from you. I'm going to find another deal here. High frequency trading. They think there's going to be high frequency negotiations. Which completely makes sense, right? You could extrapolate out. We've got swarms of agents acting in their own economic interest and trying to get the best deal, trying to secure the best thing possible for, given their mandate. And, these ideas seem kind of futuristic and far off, but this is happening much faster than we expect. Again, X402, 6 months old. It's taken off in a month. This is garnering a ton of attention, and this is where we're heading. And so we're actively building for this future. And so, in this proto-digital life form example, I use the analogy I've said before that you could think of them like teenagers with credit cards, and they're off on their own, and you need to give them kind of spending limits. So, how do humans maintain control over these proto-digital life forms? And we can think of crypto and the inherent transparency and observability of blockchain transactions is what's needed. So really, it makes perfect sense that crypto and Web3 is meeting this AI and agentic future right now, and I think that's why the moment for X402 hit, is because the observability of the blockchain is what makes this thing work, and also the ability to do micropayments, and so using antiquated rails like Visa and transaction fees and whatnot. It basically breaks down in this new kind of machine speed system, in needing to do these microtransactions for these new behaviors that are happening. So this is from the A16Z report. So in the middle there, it says crypto may be the only viable payment rail for AI agents, right? That makes sense. This may be the moment where crypto and Web3 shines, because we found like a perfect use case for why use the blockchain, and why have we spent years, building all these systems. It really might be for this moment right now. So it is appropriate that we are here in the Bay Area, here in the Presidio, here talking about this, because this is where it's the epicenter of why it's happening. And that's really why we built Ampersand, which I'll get into in a minute. And Ampersand is wallets for agents and dashboards for humans. So it's a management platform for agent payments and operations. It enables wallet creation, account automation, action automation, full visibility, action control, and here's what it looks like. And I'll give a demo shortly. But really simply, it's, dashboards. It's visual. We're visual people. A lot of this stuff is on the command line right now, if you've built agents and whatnot. And so it's simple visual dashboards and control panels for humans to interact with these new systems, and just to make life easier for business people to log in and see, okay, what's happening, and so let's get into why this matters. So before, in the graph, humans manually paid for data. So the graph has this blockchain indexing protocol, and you'd have to set up an API key. You'd have to have specific data you're looking for. You'd hit a subgraph, and then you would pay per query. And it would take quite a bit of setup. And this is something we set up back in 2018 when I first started, and we launched the network in 2021. But even back then, we were talking about the need for microtransactions. This is a blog post from 2021. And I threw this in the deck last minute because my team actually dug this up today. But that we were already talking about the need for microtransactions back then. And so we actually developed a system called Scalar internally, which would allow for batching of transactions and allow for settlement over you ganging up a bunch of transactions, because there was a gas fee involved every time you had to settle. And this actually became the foundation for the deferred payment scheme, which is something we submitted to the X402 standard. So we were very early on in recognizing the need for that from our work from Scalar, and submitted that as a PR to the X402 repo, and it's under review, and we're hoping that'll be included into the standard, because it is needed. It allows for much smaller transactions than what's in the current standard. And yeah, if we look back to this quote, we were talking about microtransactions, and we even brought up the payment required X402 code. So back then we thought, okay, Scalar is going to do what X402 is doing now. So thankfully, X402 came out and enabled agentic payments at scale. And so what was needed was this bridge. So we had to, on our side, we had to create MCP servers, which is to enable agent micropayments for data. So instead of the old model of having an API key and having a user pay for transactions that way, we can now set up this subgraph MCP server, and agents can communicate with that and pay via X402. And that all happens seamlessly without the need for all that setup. Now with this, in the old version, in order for us at the graph to view the analytics and financial reporting off of subgraphs, we had to build this complex data pipeline and feed it into dashboards. And we have like a data science team that are like getting data off the blockchain and viewing, extracting this data, et cetera. So that's why we felt the need to develop Ampersand, because, you know, pre-existing dashboards, if you're using this system and you're compatible with it, you'll have the analytics and reporting right there without having to build things from scratch like we had to go through with the graph. So as a real world example, as me, you know, so we've got, say, these subgraph MCP servers running, we've got agents interacting with them. So me as a CEO of Agentic, I want to see how they're performing financially. And so again, we don't want them running out of control. So how do I view and monitor all these things? So with this, it's agents and humans working in coordination. And so Ampersand is where you'd monitor those activities. So we'll get into a demo here just to quickly show. And let me, hopefully, let's see. Okay, all right. So this is Ampersand. So we've got the main screen here. So we've got the kind of buyer and seller side. So Ampersand works if you have agents going out and interacting and buying things for you, but then also if you've built agents on the seller side. So within the same dashboard, you'd have buyer and seller agents visible. And again, this is only like a day or two worth of data. So in the deck that I showed, it kind of had more graphs, so this will be more filled out. But let's go into the buyer side. So over here, so this is the screen of the agent that'll be buying services from the subgraph A2A agent using X402. So over here, you can see the spending limit and auto top up. So here, these are like toggle switches that you can set. So again, you can see I'm only saying this agent can spend 1 USDC per day. You can set a monthly spending limit, per transaction limit. Auto top up is on the sell side. It can automatically deposit into a wallet you specify. So I'm logged in. We use Coinbase embedded wallets here. And the main account is a smart account, which is kind of a newer thing that's been released in the wallet world. And this main account, smart accounts, is what allows you as a main account to control and manage sub-accounts. So certain features require this kind of smart account technology. And so here, I'm going to switch to, this is the Google ADK development environment. So I've got this running locally. So I'm using the smart account, and I'm pretending to be the buyer agent. And I'm going to talk to the subgraph agent via A2A. And here we go. So this agent is going to interact with the subgraph. So I'm going to say, please show me the last 2 ENS registrations. So what's happening behind the scenes is this agent is, okay, so it gave me a response. So basically, what this is happening behind the scenes is that this agent is going out and searching in the graph ecosystem a subgraph that has data on ENS registrations. then it recognizes that that's where it needs to get the data and negotiates the payment, runs the query, gets the query result, and serves it back to me. So this is like a simple example just showing how this works in a local environment. So you can imagine there's many agents out there that are trying to get data from the graph to perform certain actions. They might be like financial transactions. So you can imagine this is data coming from the blockchain. You've got an agent that wants to get like latest trades on tokens, and then it's going to use that data to then make an analysis to give back to the user to say, like say it's a trader who's trying to get alpha on a trade, and it might give a recommendation to say, okay, you should short this coin or sell this coin and trade it for this, or you can envision any kind of like financial scenario in which that would make sense. And so back on the buyer side, you see here the balance should decrease and the spending amount. So it was 1 cent per transaction, and so that value updates.
How does it negotiate the transaction? Like what they mentioned down there?
That goes into like the inner workings of X402, and we've done like talks on that. I don't know if your talk is going to go into that. Okay. Yeah, so Kevin's talk after mine will go more into the inner workings of how that works. But that's built into the X402 protocol where you, in the request and response, there's an amount that is transacted and that negotiation happens seamlessly. So it works brilliantly. And so this is on the sell side, and then you can see like, in this example, the buyer side would decrease in terms of spending, the sell side would increase as these two transactions happen, because I'm showing both sides of the equation. And so here you can do auto collect, and you can collect to a custom address. So at the graph, for example, all these earnings, we could just auto deposit nightly, and then we can view our earnings here. And so that is ampersand. Very quickly. So my team put this funny meme together. So, you know, from humans using subgraphs to agents and humans using ampersand. It's a mind blow. So what's coming next? We've got our dashboard view. We'll be able to manage the deferred payment scheme within ampersand, which will show you the batching of transactions over time and settlement. Later in the day, Marco is going to be talking about reputation and identity with ERC 8004. So you'll be able to manage and view for each of your agents their reputations, scoring. There could be like fraud detection even is built into this. We'll be adding more detailed charts and analytics, and then also more chain support as more chains come online. We've already been contacted from different teams on different chains, so that will be forthcoming. So a lot to do. So to summarize, we're just on the cusp of this revolution. It's still early, but it's going to grow faster than any of us can imagine, and we're ready for it. So ampersand is live today at ampersand.ai, and there's a QR code there if you're interested in trying it out to sign up for the private beta. And if you're building agents, please come and talk to me or Kevin, and we'd love to hear what you're working on and see if we can work together. All right, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Did you want to take any questions, or do you want to save questions for the fireside chat?
Yeah, we could do questions.
Yeah. Does anyone have, well, I guess we have time for like maybe one question,
Okay.
Or one or two. Sure. Zahid? Yep.
Can I ask two? So how do you select from A to A to the ampersand? So is it the ampersand is the payment gateway, or is it also provide SDK for building agents?
Yes. Yes, I failed to mention that, but we are coming out with the ampersand SDK. And so that will be open source. And so as you're building agents, you can build ampersand support right in. Really, the ampersand side is just the wallet side of it. So essentially, when you are building your agent and you go to give it a wallet, you would go into ampersand and just create a new kind of wallet account, which is a smart account for that agent. And then that's where you would view the activities of that agent and control. But it is not the payment, like you would use X402 and A2A for the agent communication. Ampersand.
Separately?
Yeah, that ampersand doesn't mediate that. Ampersand is just the visibility plane. It's kind of the dashboard view of what that agent is doing.
Okay. And what you are doing for security? Because it will be prime for like a security, like different kind of vulnerability that comes with both LLM and building agents.
Yeah, somebody say something?
But
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. So ampersand doesn't handle like,
no.
yeah, that's all built into the protocols themselves, like A2P and like he was saying, the attestation. So ampersand is just the visibility plane of what's happening.
Okay.
But I think Kevin's talk he's actually showing like the
Yeah.
building of an agent.
I'll do a
so-
talk on the ampersand SDK.
Yeah.
A little bit of a
Oh,
workshop.
perfect. Yeah.
And I think we had one more question here, and then
Okay,
we'll go to the next speaker. Who is next? Hugh? Yeah. Here you go. Here's the mic.
Thanks. Yeah, so you had mentioned crypto purchases and exchanges as what the bot will be searching out. And I'm wondering, will it also be getting into pools, DeFi pools? Or?
Yeah, effectively,
Thank you.
yeah, there's no limit in terms of what agents can do. And so really what ampersand is for is just to view what it's doing, right? Because right now, if you build an agent and then it goes out and does stuff, like how do you pull a report and like see everything that's happening and like control it? It's all like command line and sort of obfuscated, and it's kind of running wild, and you're like, okay, what's it doing? So this is a way to see it kind of in a visible UI to see, okay, these are the transactions that happen, this is how much it spent. Oh, I don't want it to spend more than this amount per that thing, and yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Rodrigo.
Awesome.
Appreciate it. Give Rodrigo a hand of applause. And we will be doing a fireside chat around 4:20 where you can ask more questions. So, okay, great. Next up, Kevin, my good friend Kevin.
Awesome.
Kevin from Coinbase, Kevin LeFew. He's going to be talking about the X42 protocol. And yeah, please welcome him.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Let me get set up here. Well, first off, thank you, everybody, for coming out today. It's such an exciting time to be building at the intersection of AI and on-chain finance. I think what we're finding is that on-chain finance can solve a lot of real user experience problems around how agents can discover, reason about, and pay for tools. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today. Some of you have sat through other presentations of mine, might find some of the slides familiar. For that, I apologize. I will give a demo with Claude, giving Claude a wallet and doing payments for APIs in real time at the end of the talk today. So the idea today is to explain X402, provide a primer to the people in the audience here who might not be as familiar with the protocol, the aims, what we're aiming to accomplish. And we're all here to build in the agentic era. And so kind of the quick overview, X402 is an extension. The X stands for extension of the 402 status code in HTTP. It provides a standard interface for any web resource to request payments on the internet. And we know today that agents can't really easily pay for tools and services. So if anyone here is building applied AI applications, we know that it's really a pain to configure function calling, or what's oftentimes called tool calling in the language model space. And so language models are great. They're great at parsing text. They're great at giving us answers, but they're a lot more powerful when we give them action, the ability to take actions in the cloud, to call APIs, to retrieve real-time data, and this really compounds their ability. So agents, they need to access APIs. They need to pull proprietary data, whether that's scientific data or maybe medical research data. They need to be able to pay and access this data and access specialized GPU inference and just take more actions in the cloud. This is how we give language models more autonomy. Today, we have to configure each tool call statically, so we need really a human in the loop, a developer to go derive an API key from an API portal, then explicitly configure that tool call. X402 flips that model on its head, and it enables language models to discover, to reason about, and to pay for external resources or APIs natively. 404, I guess my slide's messed up. Nope. That's the 404 status code. Good example here from Google. So a lot of you guys may have seen this. 404 is the status code error we get in HTTP when we get file not found. 402 is a status code that was built into HTTP in the late 90s. Mark Andreessen has famously said that not building payments natively into the web protocol stack has been the internet's original sin. And so we're here to solve and absolve that original sin with X402 by bringing payments directly back into the protocol layer. And so I think it's a kind of a relic of computer internet history, but payments really got built at a higher level stack. There was no easy way to bring a credit card into the browser early on, so the status code never got lit up. Now with stablecoins, the ability to do low fee, small transactions, instantly, we can leverage more modern financial technology, on-chain financial technology to solve this problem. And so the overarching thesis is, what if stablecoins, this new primitive, this new web primitive that a lot of us here are excited about, what if that became the meter in the payment method for every web resource? And that's what we want to enable with X402. We want to enable any API provider, anybody who's offering a service on the internet, which is every financial information technology company, to be able to monetize that and make that available to language models and agents in a frictionless way that minimizes the kind of the UX configuration, the human in the loop aspect through X402. And so with X402, the only thing between an agent and an API is your price. So it's as simple as that. X402, I think the beauty of it is in its simplicity. So X402 just defines a standard way for any web resource to request payment to access that web resource. And so you send a request, you get a price back, the agent or the human responds with an authorized withdrawal signature that says, hey, here are the funds, I'm good to pay. And then it all happens in one seamless settlement loop. And so we're really rethinking how payments can happen on the web in a more HTTP internet native way. Broadly, to set the stage from a macro perspective, the way that humans are interfacing with computers is shifting. So I have an 8-month-old son, and I expect the way that he interfaces with computers to be kind of radically different than the way that I've grown up interfacing with computers. And so I've lived through a lot of the shifts from desktop to mobile and social media. In many ways, AI is a new modality. It's as big of a new modality UX shift as mobile is. And so as service providers, it's really important for us to build against this new modality and create AI native ways for payments so that people can access our services. Broadly, the shift I think is represented in these two images. So I think we're moving from a world where the human goes and they browse through a bunch of pages or search results, right? I think search is the other example, and then shopping here, where instead of using Google, you just ask a prompt, the AI tailors it to you, and the AI has context, it has memory about all of its previous interactions with you, and it leverages that to create a better experience for the user. And so this shift in kind of the fundamental UX of computing is happening, and X402 is positioned to be the payment layer for that. And so X402 unlocks frictionless agentic commerce for APIs. It enables agents, and as a result of this, agents actually perform better on task alignment. And so this is somewhat, to me, it's obvious, it seems tautological that the more actions a language model can take, the better it's going to perform. So if we can give agents the ability to search the web, the ability to create images, create videos, to retrieve real-time price feed data, it's going to perform better than only an agent that has access to its internal model data. And there are a lot of eval studies in kind of the scientific literature AI space that show this, but it's important to call out that through X402, by freeing tool usage and enabling frictionless tool usage for agents, we're actually creating better results, better task alignment on a per prompt basis for users that are interfacing with language models. Largely by freeing tool discovery, we also are seeing that X402 is igniting kind of this new wave of open source AI. And this kind of follows along with the shift in the architectural pattern of AI. And so previously, kind of the first wave of open source AI, at least how I like to think about it, was driven through fine-tuned models. So open source models like Stable Diffusion would be fine-tuned to serve certain purposes, create, anime images or photorealistic images. And we've largely shifted as an industry in the AI space from fine-tuning models to instead using this increasingly large context window at the core level of the foundation model. And so we think that the future is, instead of fine-tuning millions of models, you'll have like one core reasoning model that has memory about you. It has a large context window. It can discover, access, and pay for tools. Some of those tools may be fine-tuned models, by the way, but it can do that in really a frictionless way. And this is what's driving then this new wave of open source AI and new experimentation around AI. And I'm really excited about it. The analogy that I often like to use for X402 is something like Kubernetes. So Kubernetes was incubated by Google, and it drove really the cloud container orchestration revolution in the 2010 decade. It drove massive amounts of cloud consumption, was valuable to the entire tech ecosystem. I think X402 is probably pretty well set to be an analogy to Kubernetes, where, incubated by Coinbase, moving to a credibly neutral foundation supported by Cloudflare and other providers, with companies here like AWS, Google, Vercel, other large tech companies building on this to create a really level playing field as standard around agentic payments in a way that's open source and drives agentic commerce broadly on the internet. So Kubernetes is often the analogy that I like to use here. And also another quick thought. So as we shift towards an agentic interface, like search is disrupted, shopping's disrupted, like how can we use these analogies to kind of think about what's important in this new agentic web? Well, in my opinion, tool discovery becomes critically important. Tool discovery and the ranking and ordering of tools that agents discover and pay for and reason about really replaces SEO in many ways. And so in an agentic first web, tool discovery with kind of optimized metadata, pricing, and reputation becomes critical for agents. And this is really an active area of research with the X402, and I'll touch on kind of our V2 spec and extensions in just a moment. But now it's really critically important to think about, how do we make our resources, our APIs, our MCP servers, our websites accessible by agents, and optimize them to be consumed by agents. I think, just like they're optimized like A/B testing flows for search, where it's like, okay, consumer clicked on a link, did they like that link? If so, we'll increase its ranking. There's gonna be similar evaluation or eval techniques applied to language models, where you give a prompt, the user generates a video, as an example. Did that video basically complement the user's prompt? If yes, like that's good, we want to encourage that. If not, we want to downrank it. And so I think reputation is a key part of discovery and ranking, and that there's a good analogy to SEO in this market. So overall, kind of my fun slide here that I always like to show is, let's kill the API key. So the API key was designed for really a human-first web, and it has a lot of friction, right? Humans need to navigate API portals, and we don't actually need this. So with X402, we can completely kill, or maybe a better word would be replace, the API key with an authorized withdrawal signature. So when we make an API request, in the header, we're including that signature in lieu of the API key. And so the wallet becomes the core identity mechanism, and the payment acts as the authorization that replaces the API key. This is what enables that really kind of rapid innovation that we see around agents discovering, using, and paying for tools. So it's a new paradigm in the way that we interact with external web resources. And that's, I think, a really exciting point to tune in on. X402 has been live. I think we have something like 130 open source contributors to the core protocol today. Again, fully open source, so we definitely encourage issues, PRs, but we are announcing kind of a V2 version of the X402 spec. We've been working on very closely with Cloudflare and other key design partners. And this is going to introduce a couple new concepts. So I'd recommend, if you're actively building the X402 space, to go to the open pull request for X402 V2. I think we're set to launch this by the end of the week, if not by the end of next week. And what this does is it introduces a couple new concepts, one called an extension layer that lets you add capabilities around identity, reputation, verification without touching the core. And then it also streamlines kind of the contributor experience. And so a lot of new features in the V2 spec for X402. It's backwards compatible, but it is going to change some small parts of the design pattern for people in the ecosystem. So before I get to the demo, a quick graph of like how agents are actually using stablecoins to buy web resources in the real world today. There's kind of, I like to break out a couple categories around production use cases. So a lot of times agents will want to call open source language models, Maybe they want to like ingest data from a social graph feed and then parse that into a prompt that they feed into a video generation tool or something like that. You can do that today with Hyperbolic, which supports GPT-OSS, Kimi, Qwen, MetaLlama, and other key open source foundation models. Image and video generation are also key. We have AI partners like FreePic and Protea that are making image generation accessible via X402 protocol, and there are a lot of other partners that aren't listed here. Storage and cloud, taking the ability to store data, whether in object storage or perpetual storage via IPFS, is quite popular. Nanar supports X402 for pulling all social graph data from Farcaster, which is the leading kind of Web3 social client. XAI also launched a pay-per-use API for their X API. I'll be at the hackathon for the XAI hackathon this weekend. If anyone wants to jam on some X402 concepts, would love to jam with you. We see other use cases like long-form reasoning, browser usage. So just today, BrowserBase actually just did their first live production. They've been live on testnet for a while, but now they're live on mainnet. So an agent can like spin up a web browser. It can take screenshots of some deployed code that it wrote. It can feed that screenshot and test and basically do UI, UX testing, feed that back to language model, and drive better reinforcement learning loops so that we have better results. You can also search and scrape the web. And a lot of people are using Firecrawl and Zeit.com for that as well. Overall, the ecosystem's exploding. So you may have seen X402 Scan, built by Merit Systems. They're an Andreessen Horowitz-backed company. Highly recommend checking out X402 Scan. You can break down the activity in the ecosystem by chain, by network, by facilitator, by web server. And we can see in the past 30 days, this graph's a little outdated. I think we're actually a little higher than this now for the past 30 days. This is from my presentation in Buenos Aires. We've done almost 50 million transactions. I think that's pretty notable for an emerging ecosystem. We've done 50 million transactions, and that's represented over $30 million in volume. So we're doing about $1 million in volume a day through these agentic protocols, and this is only going up and up. It's something really exciting to see the growth in buyers and sellers within the ecosystem. And so nice thing about this being on chain is that a lot of the data is open source and you can learn a lot about new projects that people are using. X402 Scan also has the ability to connect a wallet. So inside of the browser, I can just like connect a wallet. I can fund it with Apple Pay or with my Coinbase account. Then I can test these APIs in kind of like a sandbox environment. And so if we're building an X402, we want to try out new resources that are available, maybe to chain different tool calls together. It's a great way to do that. Okay, so now I want to give a quick demo. So demos are always fun live. What I wanted to showcase today is our payments MCP product, which basically gives a wallet with spending permissions to a language model like Claude and lets you discover discover resources through X402 chain tool calls and perform different actions. And so here we can see I have Claude opened up. I'll go ahead and increase the window size here. We also have a wallet. And so I can see here I have a wallet with about $27 on it. I can fund that wallet with Coinbase or with Apple Pay pretty easily. I can send funds to that wallet and I can receive funds. I can also discover all the different tools that are available inside of the X402 Bazaar quite easily. And so, by giving Claude a wallet, we've unlocked all of this opportunity. All Claude needs is a wallet. Now it can discover, reason about, and pay for tools autonomously. So let's go ahead and copy a couple of prompts here. So first I'll say, does it have awareness of this own MCP that it's plugged in? What is payments MCP? What does it do? So it's going to reason about this MCP that it has access to. Should give us some cool information. I'll go ahead and cache the next prompt here. So here we go. Payments MCP is a system that enables me to make payments on your behalf using cryptocurrency, specifically USDC, to access various paid services and APIs on the web. This is how it works. Practical use cases, pay for web services, use specialized AI models, access gated content. Awesome. We can go ahead and say, okay, what is my wallet address? Should be able to parse that as a tool call, feed me my wallet address. So I'll go ahead and allow this tool call. And then here we go. This is my wallet address ending in 4577, which if I go back to my wallet, I want to receive funds, 4577. Okay, it's connected. Now I'm going to go ahead and ask it to discover a specific tool. So this is kind of a fun tool that I found on Twitter. It's called the Imagine tool. And what this tool does is it wraps the Sora API, introduces this concept of content coins, And so I can pay to generate a viral video, like an AI generated video. And if anyone here has used the Sora mobile app, you can see that the Sora, mobile app, like a lot of it is driven by these like meme videos that people remix where you change a little bit of the dialogue or maybe you change the characters inside of the video. Well, with the Imagine tool, it creates a creator coin around each individual video. And if someone remixes that one video as a base video, it feeds some demand into that initial creator coin. So it's kind of a really cool prototype of how I think we might monetize AI content on the web ultimately. So now it didn't find the specific Imagine tool, but let's go ahead and ask this to create a video for us. I'll say make sure it has Imagine in its name. And this is also, I think, a good illustration of like why reputation discovery becomes more important. So like now that when there was like 10 tools in the X42 ecosystem, it was a little bit different. Now there's like, I think tens of thousands of tools. So the AI has to basically pull a list. So the way that it works today is the AI pulls a list of all the available tools, it brings that into context, and then it reasons about it. And so there's a little bit of a needle in the haystack problem sometimes. So we're looking to solve that. Okay, well, let's see, what did I do? I've had this demo work before. Let's just go into the bazaar and check. Oh, maybe the endpoint is not online. But we can do a different one. So let's say, go ahead and get my horoscope for today and give me access to some degen crypto moves based on the latest crypto and AI news. So this is going to use some web search APIs to go ahead and make that happen. And really the power here that I want to like double click on and highlight is this composability of tools. So Anthropic just last week posted a great article around dynamic tool usage. And I think it's pretty awesome because a lot of it is representative of the work that we've been doing at Coinbase and Cloudflare and through the X42 ecosystem to drive dynamic tool discovery and usage. Tools are great, but when we can discover and chain together tools, the power really compounds. So here it's going to go ahead and call this news aggregator, get some real-time crypto news. So it's going to feed this prompt. What are the hottest AI crypto tokens? Sure, why not? That's a good question. So it's basically based on the reasoning capability of the model itself. So I think normally AIs, like the language models are reasoning about price. I think we want to like explicitly trace that, and that's where tools like Ampersand I think can be really valuable on really acting as almost like a lane graph type substrate for us to like track eval and responses. But like some of AI is like a black box. It's like the way that AI makes decisions is non-deterministic, and it's just using all of its reasoning capability and context to make that decision. If this doesn't work, I have an example that did work a second ago. Okay, this one looks good. So it's 1 cent. It's going to call this API. Go ahead and allow it to make the payment. And the nice thing too with like the way that X42 works today is like it is somewhat experimental as we build agentic commerce, and because language models are non-deterministic, it's really a new programming pattern. So it isn't really important to set guardrails. Like we don't want an agent to like go find an API that's like $50, and doesn't work and pays $50. Like that would be a big bummer. And so we can really granularly set spend permissions. And like here I have the language model enabling each tool call individually. And so like as I'm testing this, I probably want to enable each tool call myself. But if I were to put it into production, maybe I'd want to automate that. So here we go. Here's a cool forecast. We're entering a period of renewal after a recent shakeout. I think that's pretty true. There's a big Vanguard catalyst because Vanguard offered the Bitcoin ETF. Over 11,000 agents launched on virtuals, which, by the way, all virtuals agents moved to X42 for their payment method. They announced that today, so that's pretty cool. A lot of momentum on Solana. And there we go. So now we just paid a cent to get some real-time news and use that real-time news to create kind of a creative prompt. So yeah, so that's it. All these components for the tool are open source as well. And so with Payments MCP, We're using Coinbase embedded wallets to spin up a wallet in a trusted execution environment on the back end. So I'm just logging in with my email. I can really easily configure a demo flow where like I tie login with X or with my Google account or with Apple. So we're basically tying OAuth to wallet creation. So if we use OAuth for identity in our application today, just easily bring the user a wallet. They don't have to know that it's crypto. It can just be dollars, digital dollars, USDC, and then they can now pay and discover for tools. So we can create really streamlined user experiences around that. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter, KLaFew94, and I invite all of you to join and participate in the X402 ecosystem. It's an exciting time to be live.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate it. All right, cool. So next up, very excited, we have Jordan Ellis from Google. Jordan, I think you're here somewhere. Jordan's going to be talking about the why moment. This is going to be a really good talk. Jordan, where are you? Oh, there he is. All right.
Sure, thanks. Oh no. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, extend. Yeah. Cool. All right. All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Jordan. I'm a software engineer at Google. I work with Nicole on the Google Cloud Web3 team. Can you hear me? Thank you. All right. Is that better? Nice. Okay, cool. We'll start over. Hey, everyone. I'm Jordan. I'm a software engineer at Google. I work on the Cloud Web3 team. I've been at Google for a while. I've worked on ads billing and on other cloud products in the data centers. But recently I've been working on the A to A protocol and the AP2 protocol. The A to A protocol stands for agent to agent, and AP2 stands for agent payments protocol. And then on top of that, we've built an extension within AP2 to support X402 payments. So I'll be kind of going through how all of these different protocols work together to kind of create a secure and trusted agent environment. So we'll start with A to A. What is it? Why is it needed? Some of you might already be familiar with this protocol. Hopefully you are. But it's let's say you want to build a travel agent, and that travel agent is going to be communicating and working with several different agents. You'll have a flight agent or a hotel agent, and all of these might be owned and operated by different entities. So the world kind of needs a standard way for all of these agents to communicate and collaborate with each other. So that's where this A to A protocol comes in. It's an open standard designed to be the common language between all of these AI agents. So while most agent frameworks like ADK or LangChain or CrewAI all have this concept of sub-agents or some sort of multi-agent structure architecture that they use, A to A allows for all of these agents to communicate with remote third-party agents that can all be using different stacks, different agent frameworks, but all are able to understand each other. So the flow is kind of like this, where A to A facilitates a communication between a client agent and a remote agent or a server agent. We kind of use those interchangeably. Client agent is responsible for formulating and communicating the requests, while the remote agent is responsible for acting on those requests in an attempt to provide correct information or artifacts for the requesting client. It's kind of like how LangChain made it easy to swap between models or tools. A to A makes it easy for agents to communicate and consistently with any other agents using standardized data structures and methods that can be called by anyone in these networks. Yeah. So MCP is just an agent calling a specific tool. A to A is an agent calling another agent, and there's task and state management that we'll get into a little bit that is baked into A to A to allow for more seamless interaction and collaboration between agents. So we'll go over some of the core concepts of the protocol. A to A agents can dynamically discover each other. They can collaborate via standardized tasks. We'll go through that. There's sharing of content that can happen, and it supports long-running tasks. So tasks can be pulled once they're kicked off between agents, and do all of this with enterprise-grade security and standards that already exist today. It's important to know that each agent is opaque to the other agent, so the implementations of the agents themselves are not visible to the other agents, only the responses and tasks delegated between them are shared. So A to A versus MCP is one of the big things that often comes up as one of the main questions. So A to A and MCP are complementary protocols. They're not competing. So MCP is all about how the agent connects with its tools, APIs, and other resources. It's a standardized way for agent to perform function calling, executing tasks on a user's behalf, where A to A facilitates this dynamic communication between multiple independent agents acting as peers. So these will be other remote agents. It's about how the agents collaborate, delegate tasks, and manage these shared workflows. So here you'll see two agents maybe using different large LLMs or hosted on different services, or running different agent frameworks, but they're all able to communicate via the A to A protocol. So I'll kind of quickly run through how A to A works, where here's the flow starting with a user. It's connected to an agent via a client, and that is the client agent. The client agent's responsible for creating these requests and handling the user interactions, while the remote agent that the client agent identifies and connects to is responsible for providing correct information or completing these tasks. It's important to note that any given agent can act both as a client and a remote agent, depending on the context. So any agent on the network can act as the client or server and propagate tasks throughout these connected agent networks. Let's see. So first, agent A finds agent B and kind of asks what it can do for it. Agent B will publish an agent card. So this is a standardized card that is presented by any agent on the A to A network. It's a digital business card. It's a standard JSON object that's found at a well-known URL on the agent's domain. This card tells agent A everything it needs to know to start a conversation with agent B. So here's an example for kind of what an agent card might look like. It'll have its name, descriptions, versions, skills. Not listed here are other like streaming capabilities or supported extensions. We'll get into extensions a little bit more in a minute, but each agent can expand its skill set by implementing different agreed upon extensions. So agent A found agent B. Now, how do they actually communicate? All of these methods and data structures for the agent are defined in the A to A spec. Agents communicate using HTTPS or JSON RPCs or gRPC, but Other transports can also be used. Some of the standard A2A objects include this message object that is kind of the most simple form of communication between agents. There are also artifact objects and task objects that we'll get into in a minute. So if agent B's task is taking longer than expected, or it can't be retrieved and sent back to the client agent quickly, it'll send back this task object that has a specific task ID and status. These tasks have a life cycle of submitted, working, or an input required status if the agent B needs more info or maybe a payment. So when agent A sends the initial request, agent B might quickly respond saying, got it, I've created this task, I'm working on it now, here's the task ID. To get the final summary, agent A can periodically call another A2A method, tasks/get, to get the status of the ongoing task that's being run by agent B. Eventually, the tasks will return, hopefully, completed. The summary will be passed to the calling agent with a summary in it and possible artifacts and the task artifacts. These are the output objects of whatever the agent was working on. And to avoid constantly polling these remote agents, A2A protocol supports a streaming or service sent events. If agent B's agent card says it supports streaming and agent A supports streaming, it can use the message/stream method to continue to stream events from these. Stream updates might be something like the initial task object, then task status update events, messages saying I'm working on it or the task is now complete. And also the artifacts themselves can be streamed. So you don't have to pull for the final task being completed. Once it is, the artifact will be streamed back to the user. But how does agent B actually process a request when agent A calls it? That's the job of this agent executor. This is how we kind of extract and make the underlying agent and agent framework agnostic. It's the class you write using the A2A SDK that handles generic A2A protocol pieces to provide them to the agent. So it's the SDK that worries about the HTTP conversions to the objects or the JSON RPC, the event management, and what the outputs from the agents, how they get packaged and sent back. Here's a possible stack that it might look like for one of your agents. We recommend this stack, but you can use different components if you prefer. Obviously, Google wrote ADK, so we prefer and have a lot of support for these libraries, but any other frameworks are also supported by A2A. So here's some A2A documentation, some links for this. There's a lot of different demos you can find here, some code samples as well, and I'm going to now, jump to AP2. I have a lot of content to get through, so I'm trying to rush. But AP2 is an extension on the A2A protocol. It stands for Agent Payments Protocol. It's an extension that allows for agents to pay each other using secure transactions between them. With A2A opening up this new world of agents to connect and work together, our tasks start to become more complicated and it'll eventually will require payments. For developers, this opens up a new frontier for building agents that can browse, negotiate, and make transactions for users. Very similarly to a lot of the work that's being done in the X402 space. But the goal is all of these payments were built with the idea of a human being in the loop. Today's payment systems assume a human is directly clicking by. When an autonomous agent initiates a payment, it breaks this assumption and raises a lot of questions and trust concerns. How can we prove that the user gave the agent this specific authority to make that purchase? How can a merchant be sure that the agent's request is accurate and not some hallucination? If there's fraud, who's accountable? Is there any auditability or traceability to these long-running tasks that often require payments? So this is why Google introduced the Agent Payments Protocol. It's an open source protocol designed to create secure and trusted foundation for the future of these AI-driven payments. It's compatible with existing standards such as A2A and MCP, and this allows for you to build your existing work to create a secure and reliable framework for automation. It's built on a couple core principles, openness and interoperability. This is non-proprietary open extension for A2A and MCP. It fosters a competitive environment for anybody who wants to innovate. The user is always in control. All of this is done and proven using verifiable credentials or verifiable intents. We'll kind of go through what intents and mandates look like in a little bit. This provides a clear transaction of accountability. Each step will be signed and will be verifiable by the involved user's credentials. And it's global and future-proof. V0.1 supports pull payments like cards, and there's a roadmap for supporting more push-like payments, X402 being one, and like ACH transfers as well. So how is this trust achieved? A2A uses a role-based architecture where each actor has a specific job. And this is an example model, and not all have to be structured this way, but here we have a shopping agent. This is the AI agent that's talking to the user, could be Gemini, understands the request, and is able to discover products and assemble carts. The merchant endpoint, this is the agent or MCP server that is on the merchant side. It has access to the products and inventory. It can negotiate the carts and the prices with the shopping agent. There also has to be this credential provider or some kind of secure wallet. This is the key to security and verifiability. It's the digital wallet that manages the user's payment methods and handles payment credentials and data. The shopping agent never touches these raw payment credentials to make sure that agents themselves aren't able to access that payment information. And there's a merchant payment processor. That's the aspect of the processing for handling these payments, so the merchant agent itself doesn't also have to handle these credentials. So here are the central innovation is how these roles communicate. Instead of the simple API calls, AP2 uses verifiable credentials. There are these cryptographic proofs that are signed. For human present scenarios, the user is always available to approve these transactions to create we use a cart mandate in this sense, where a user would see the cart that's presented to them. It would be able to sign this cart, stamp it with their VC, and send it back to the merchant. The merchant can trust that this agent is good and has been approved by a user. This also supports now humans not present scenarios where the future versions of this protocol, these are something like buy these tickets when they go on sale or at a certain strike price. Users sign this intent mandate then, and that intent is what is signed and sent and shared with merchants, and the merchant can verify that this intent matches with what is being purchased. And then finally, there is this payment mandate that is signed by the paying client or shopping agent with the payment credentials that are provided, along with a verifiable credential to prove all of this is being done by the authorized entity. So on AP2, here's additional code examples for how AP2 works in an A2A environment, some more on the spec, and the GitHub repo as well. All of this is open, and contributions are greatly appreciated. And finally, we're going to dive into how X402 lands in this. With AP2, the main payment rail is focused on basic card, but this is also, we found to be a perfect opportunity for X402 to be leveraged as a payment rail between agents. And we've worked with Coinbase on developing a A2A extension for X402. X402 already has some of, on the more technical side, some of these objects that are used in the exchange. So we built out this extension to import these objects and use them in the A2A protocol to facilitate these payments. Another difference between the just regular X402 flow and how it's used in the A2A extension version of it, there is an additional task state that is attached to the tasks. It's a unique flow that is independent of the standard A2A native task flow. This way, the overall A2A task state is not impacted, and the payment flow is able to clearly communicate without repurposing or adding additional native A2A states to this task. This is a flow of what it looks like, but it's a little tiny. So I'm going to instead switch over to a demo of this in action. In this example, we're going to see an agent. Let me see if I can adjust this so I can see what we're doing. We're going to log into a client here. This client we've set up to, this is just the ADK web UI that we've modified to connect with MetaMask wallet. So the user is able to connect their MetaMask wallet to this ADK client that has a shopping agent. And this is just demonstrating that there are, we'll be paying in USDC on the base network. And you can see the merchant's wallet as well, just for posterity of the demo. Yeah. It's very dark and very small, but so the goal is I want to buy some Air Maxes. You ask the agent is then responsible, your client agent is responsible then for creating this intent mandate. So the agent immediately noticed that this intent is not very clear and asked for all of what it thought to be the clarifying details that it needs to create this intent mandate. So you'll fill out your, oops, going a little too fast. So once you respond with the information needed, then the agent, once it feels comfortable with creating this intent that it has enough information, it sends to the user an intent mandate. This mandate is shown here and can be signed by, we're using the MetaMask wallet, but this could be signed by any other verifiable credential or like an EU ID or whatever credentials are supported by the merchant agent. So you verify that this intent looks correct, you confirm it. Your shopping agent then forwards this intent to the merchant agent, and the merchant agent will respond with a cart that it's signed with its own merchant verifiable credentials, and those are verified by your agent and presented to you. So this is then presented. Your agent will create this payment mandate object where it takes your wallet. It wraps the payment X402 object, the payment response object, inside of the payment mandate, signs that, and then sends that back to the merchant agent itself. The merchant, you can see here where we follow the X402 protocol, where we verify the payment response object is valid and those funds are able to be used. And then the facilitator then settles that transaction. We can verify on-chain that this transaction's settled, has gone through, and the merchant agent is now able to send the final settle response, and you can see that it's settled on chain. Cool, I think that kind of wraps up. Yeah.
Do I have to stand? I kind of want to highlight the fact that like up until this point, like you never used the words on chain, and in the literature about AP2, especially for us Web3 natives, I think the biggest thing holding this technology back is literally us talking about the tech or the infrastructure. And I think that you guys, like, I just want to give kudos where it's due in terms of mandates and the intents and the way that you've gone about explaining the issues and talking about the issue. It doesn't feel like a Web3 application. So curious in this stage, when you're creating your intent mandates, the question I initially had that's hard to contain is like, first of all, if you have a dispute system, which would be your third attestation, I guess, with the conflicts, the whole purpose of AP2, are you guys falling back on this immutable registry for the intent mandate to say, because any user, I guess what you guys are saying is that in an agentic economy, I could just be like, I didn't pay for that. My agent went rogue and spent my credit card balance, and there's no way to verifiably prove that. So is that the purpose of this intent mandate?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So-
and then did I hear correctly that for the payment or the shopping cart, is that me, the user, then again verifying the shopping cart, like I'm approving the purchase?
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Or the merchant, because you had used the word merchant. So I'm curious if now that the intent is created, do I have to wait on the merchant to also sign?
The merchant will send back so there are two flows. There's the human and the loop flow, and
Human
that,
not present flow as well.
yeah, the only that flow will need the cart mandate that is signed by the user itself, and that's since there's a cart mandate that comes from, or a cart that comes from the merchant, and that is signed. And then the human in the loop flow, or human present flow, there is the signing of that cart mandate. For human not in the loop, that is where we use the intent mandates, and that's how the merchant is able to get to skip these cart mandates being signed and just rely on these intents that were signed, that the cart and the intent match as closely as possible. And then ultimately, both of those will be packaged in this payment mandate that will be signed by whatever paying entity
The actual
is
signature
exactly.
verification of funds processing.
Yeah, yeah.
So the concern there was like these signatures can end up being like a bottleneck for that agent autonomously go off and buy me Taylor Swift tickets at the lowest possible price, right? But the merchant can handle that with a not present flow verifying, like let's say Ticketmaster would be a MCP client. They would have a certain number of seats and they could verify before the tickets even go on sale, their inventory. And then so a human wouldn't necessarily need to be present.
Right.
The last thing here is that my question was, where would the intents be stored? And so obviously since Coinbase is pioneering that 402, is Base the default, or is this something that's going to be optional? And then and vice versa in this digital economy, are we just defaulting to USDC or other stable coins? Like, because there's like this, I'm a fan of both Base and USDC, but at the same time, we kind of risk like bolstering economy, and at the same time, I want the unification of it, because fragmentation is not necessarily the best thing for this protocol.
Right.
But if we're running 30 million in transaction volume through Base, then that's kind of like a tertiary concern, I guess, for.
Yeah, no, so to take a couple steps back, yeah, Base is not the only supported. Anything on-chain is supported, or any X402 scheme that is supported will be supported obviously by this as well. What we do with the signed mandates is kind of up to the agents themselves and what payment supported methods they're using. It might be required for Visa to maybe issue a payment credential to this agent. It might require that signed intent is sent to Visa or is stored somewhere. This also kind of gives a little bit of an introduction to the ERC 8004 contract that Marco is going to be discussing, where these intents might be able to be stored on chain, as kind of developing a reputation system among these agents. And so all of these trails of transactions can be auditable. So it provides this whole kind of, the entire trail of auditability is there and verifiable for each step, and that each step was approved by the entity that it says it was. Cool, yeah.
You mentioned Visa like as a payment, what was it, intent or like payment?
Yeah,
You mentioned merchant and then like the payment. What was that?
there's a merchant payment processor.
Okay.
And so those are up to, can be implemented by anyone. It's very open-ended. For the AP2 protocol, we did have MasterCard and a lot of other, like PayPal, like lean in and provide feedback on this and support this flow, saying that this would be enough to provide confidence and issuing of payment credentials. So that is more for kind of standard basic card supported methods, whereas X402 can get around. There's a lot of that that's already built in and could additionally be supported by introduction of like escrow smart contracts that could be developed in maybe different schemes that X402 support to broaden what payment processing is able to be done between these agents.
Okay, so like for me, if I could implement the merchant like protocol as a business. Okay, and then once you have like these intent, whether it's a person in the loop or a signed intent, where in that flow if something bounced, say like in the payment processing or in the merchant or in the payment processing, like what are scenarios where like after a user intent has been signed, you would get a bounce in one of those layers?
You're asking if the payment wasn't successful, or sorry, what was the?
Like, what if it was to bounce? Like, what was a scenario where like a user's given intent, but like Visa bounced it, or a merchant bounced that transaction?
Yeah, then the transaction doesn't go through, and then it would be up to the agent at that point to find maybe another supported method, and multiple can be. A merchant can have multiple supported payment methods, and it would have to iterate through to the next one, depending on like what point in the flow it happened. If anything, if the payment went through and like the service failed to be rendered, then there would have to be an additional refund flow that would be done. That would have to be proven by the auditability of the trail of intents and mandates.
Did you want to take more questions, or do you want to keep going? Are you all done?
Yeah, I'm done. So
Oh.
we can keep it open for questions if we have time.
Yeah. Sorry, I think we have a question here.
Let's start off with thank you for the presentation. Secondly, I guess my only big question is we're using Claude, right, for the model for the agent?
This agent?
Yeah.
No, of course, this is Gemini.
Oh, okay. Cool. I was just making sure. So I'm like a big Gemini guy, right? Like Gemini 3 Pro. So my question is, I guess it depends on what model you hook up to it. So it's like results may vary, right? Is there like like if you go on Steam, how it'll say like system requirements to use to play this game? I think if there's no implementation for like agent requirements, it must have like this to become an agent to do this. Since you guys are using Gemini 3, I'm guessing you guys are trying to make that like the standard for it, right?
Actually, no, I think we want this to be, our main focus is for this to work, it has to be a widely adopted protocol. So the goal for all of these protocols is just adoption in general. And if that means supporting, making sure that this works with SLM running locally or Gemini 3 Pro, we want all of those to be, equally supported to make sure that this, the ecosystem involved in this is as large and functional as possible.
There was another question here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the presentation. I had two types of question. One regards the transaction. So you told us about the client side. The customer can sign their intent, but I didn't really hear much about the merchant side. So what happens if the merchant is not honest with the advertised product? Does the protocol supports an automated way to, let's say, trigger refund or any accountability mechanism in place to enforce the agreed upon transaction on the merchant side? And that's one. And the second is I'm asking as a developer, so since you guys are working on the team, I was wondering if you can give us an idea of how well supported is this initiative inside Google, so that if we live here and go and start building on the top of this stack, what guarantee do we have that this stack is something essential to Google and it's going to be supported? Because we've had stories of many projects getting started and abandoned after some time. So can you guarantee us that if we go and build on top of this stack, we are going to be supported for a long time? Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, remind me of your first question again. Oh, the merchant side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the demo does gloss over the merchant side. The merchant here sends back a signed transaction. It's up to the agent then to verify that the merchant's cart that it's sending back matches with the user's intent before creating the payment mandate saying that, yeah, I will pay for this. So the client shopping agent could reject it based off of what the merchant sends back in the cart saying it doesn't match the intent. Or ultimately, if the merchant does sign this cart and it does match the intent, but the final services or goods rendered are not aligned with that, then you do have this trail now that the merchant said that they would provide the service and it wasn't provided. At that point, you'd have to go through a refund or kind of chargeback flow, which is a little bit different. But the initial, if the cart is too far off, then it is up to the shopping agent to reject that. As far as support, I can't make any guarantees. I'm not Sundar, but I can say that our payments team does have a fully dedicated resource team to supporting the AP2 protocol, and they do bi-weekly checks on the repo right now and making sure that the community is growing. There are plans for additional versions of this, and new partners are constantly being added to the supporting partners wall for AP2 and A2A. So, yeah.
This is a big thing. The ADK, the AP2 and stuff like this is a real initiative Google's taken very seriously, putting lots of engineering and resources in, and particularly in the Web3 space as well. We're leaning in heavily there. We're just launching a universal ledger service. We're doing lots of managed nodes, RPC endpoints, data graphs and stuff like that as well. Web3 is a priority. This is why Jordan's down here talking about this. Is we've got traditional banks and finances looking at this, but the future really is going to be Web3. We see that, we want to embrace that, we want to lean into that. And as much as we can guarantee that Google cares about that, that's as much as we can. We don't know, like you said. But yeah, it is a priority.
All right, let's give Jordan a round of applause. That was amazing. Awesome. Okay, so I think we're going to take a 10-minute break just to let everyone stretch, get some food if you haven't gotten food, use the bathroom, get a drink. And then after that, I'm going to come on and do a workshop. Excited for that. And then we have one more talk after that from Marco, and then we're going to do a fireside chat, so you'll be able to ask more questions. So thank you, everybody, and go enjoy 10 minutes of free time.
Rodrigo. Yeah, sure. Are you building agents?
All right, everybody, please grab your seats. If you guys can please grab your seats, please. Please grab your seats, grab your seats. We're going to get started here in a sec. Hello, hello, hello. Don't ignore me. All right, everybody, grab your seats, please. We're going to get started here shortly. All right, can you guys grab your seats? Grab your seats. Can you guys grab your seats? We're going to get started here soon. All right, are you guys having a good time? Yes? Hello? Everybody here? All right, everybody, please, 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 let's end the conversations. Sorry, guys, sorry to ask. All right, thank you guys, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed the session so far. Really excited now, we're gonna be welcoming on Marco De Rossi from MetaMask, and he's going to be doing a talk about ERC 8004, which is an amazing standard that the community has come together to build. And he's going to dive into more details on that. And yeah, again, thank you so much, everybody. And Marco, take it away.
Hi guys. So before telling you about it, ERC 8004, which is something that I will do at the end, I wanted to share 10 bets on agentic economies and see what you think about them. The first is that we are in a temporary phase where we call with different names, APIs, and agents. This will really last a very limited amount of time. It doesn't make any sense to see any difference. If you try to define that by do you use an LLM, well, what's the point? Trading agents are doing great and they're doing machine learning without an LLM. If you try to define that by the interface, it's very limited. If you try to define by the fact that it's autonomous, what's the point? A while loop. So we'll soon call all these things in the same way because that's what they are. And actually even more, tools are currently like a deterministic source of data that use a defined interface, which is the signature of the tool. This is going to change. What Anthropic released last month on the scalability of tools is just a good example of that. We will not have like hundreds of tools in the context window. We'll have models that will directly code source of data when it's needed. So I think that all these things will just become the same thing, and we will just call services or agents by what they do. If they provide data, what's their role, and we will not do the differences that we do now. Second, the industry, especially at the intersection between Web3 and AI, is dedicating a lot of time to verifiable agents. Many groups are working on trusted execution environments. Other groups are working on stake-secured inference, where you stake money, and if the inference is wrong, you lose some money. Other groups are working on reputation. Why are we doing this? So my bet is that we're not doing this to enable humans to choose agents. Humans will continue to choose how they have been doing for a lot of time in a very irrational way and emotional way based on familiarity of brands. We have a limited number of brands that we can keep in our mind. We will trust the store of agent of important brands. And so all the efforts that the community is doing is actually to enable agents to trust other agents and not humans to trust agents. And third point, since the computation of agents will be local at the edge and remote. There is a lot of discussion on local versus remote. What your model can do locally now is very different from what can do on this MacBook or what it could do on this MacBook 6 months ago. We'll have all of them. Of course, it doesn't make sense to have like 50K of hardware at home for just using the peak of hardware once or twice a day. And so based on the difference between the average computation and the peak computation, the agent will be run in all three the scenarios. And this helps a lot, of course, with resilience, because you will have data centers close to you that are reachable also through satellite if something goes wrong with data centers that are far. And because of this, and because of an open source and open weights model that we already have, and I suggest to check out Olmo v3 that has been released 10 days ago, because I think it's an amazing example of open source and not just open weights reasoning model that starts to be like competitive with other solution. Because of all this, as we often hear, the real limit, of course, will be the energy and not the intelligence by itself. Fourth bet, we don't discuss a lot how much the fact of being incredibly efficient in analyzing data will change negotiation. Markets are all about price discovery. How can I maximize what I can take and what I'm willing to take? And agentic markets will look completely different. Just imagine what's happening in B2B with purchasing officer. All this will just be blown away. It doesn't make any sense. And we will have like so many signals, so much information that agents are finally able to analyze in real time and buy for you what you want to buy. So no more information asymmetry in negotiation, and I think we should like discuss more and more about this. In some extreme cases, we had a nice talk about this at DevConnect last week. We will have like agents creating protocols on the fly. Again, our brain is limited. We can just remember a few protocols, which are our like behaviors, but for agents, this is very different. So we shouldn't assume that agents will just use our protocols. They can already code pretty well. They will just come up with the best protocol that is needed for that particular interaction, which is very different from us. We will like remain imperfect in how we negotiate. The two modes are, of course, memory. And so the great topic of context portability that will become more and more relevant as the number of megabytes that are important to make sure that when we put that prompt, the output is relevant will grow. And the more we are connecting through MCP, our chat interfaces with emails and source of data, the more that memory will become important. So that's a big moat that will make human continue to choose in an irrational way. So to do an example, we were discussing about buying Air Max shoes. Maybe I will spend a bit more just because the interface is great. I'm on ChatGPT or another service, and I'm using that service because of the memory. So human will continue to be rational in this sense. And of course, UX behaviors will remain very important. The same Web2 rules of who controls distribution, controls the top of funnel, will remain the same for humans interacting in agents economies. And that's why who controls now chat interfaces is very well candidate to run the first phase of agentic commerce, while human will still trigger the purchase. 6, that's why we're all here. Blockchains will just finally become mainstream because of AI, and humans will just not know that. We have discussed this a lot in the last 2 talks. And so my father will use blockchain without knowing it, exactly as he's now doing with the Swift system, for example, that will maybe be based on blockchain. We are doing an experimentation as we speak. Number 7, and this is something that I think we will discuss a lot in the next 12 months. If we expect agents to be effective in interacting with other agents, we need to train them on these data sets that we're not doing. So if I was mentioning Olmo, you can find on Hugging Face exactly how it has been trained, because it's open source and not just open weights. And you will not find anything related to negotiation and interaction in open networks. AIs can just do what they have been trained on, and we are not using agent coordination data set to train AIs, which is why AIs are good now in other things and are not good yet in interacting in open agent economies. when we will start feeding them with open economy, with economies interaction, like agent A does B, agent B does that, the reward is that, they will become smart also in that, which is why it's so important to have public infra and infra to collect this data. And simulated environments are perfect to train agents in this sense, because you can create data sets that they can use to become smarter in interacting with other agents. Reality is low, is constrained and expensive. 2 weeks ago, DevConnect with Eliza, for example, we have launched a game which is called Babylon, where agents playing prediction markets in synthetic world. It's very hard in the real world to train agents, because you need like some asymmetric information. What's the information about Donald Trump that nobody has? It's very difficult. In simulated environments, you can do a lot, which is why in the last 6 months, the number of papers on games used to train agents and games used as benchmarks is getting uncountable, and this will grow and grow. So agents will really, will really define how we will measure agents in a context where benchmarks are more and more overfit and saturated, and of course, this will improve simulation, that getting back to reality will turbocharge how we improve reality. And that's something else that we are not talking enough about. Of course, simulation already here, we use them already for many things, but the usage is still pretty limited in some industries. Think about a world where each of us is interacting with economies through his agents or her agents. You can basically simulate anything. You are about to launch a product, and since the player that will interact on the discovery and the product and decide if buying that or not are agents themselves, you could simulate that. So we are largely underestimating how much in a few years everything will be simulated, because of the data set that we will have collected in agents' economies and used with reinforcement learning mainly to train agents. This seems futuristic, but the concept is not. If you look at post-training right now, well, RL can be done in many ways, as you know, but AI as a judge in getting the reward is like common in many kind of RLs, and this is just the equivalent for agentic network. So as the AI judge gives the reward, other agents simulated gives the interaction, the reward to the agent that you're studying or trading, blah, 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 blah. So it's just the evolution of that. It's nothing crazy. Number 10, and connecting all the dots, basically. So if we just said that the models are open, that you can run them wherever you want, that energy is the limit, and what matters is for humans, the context that is portable or not, and that will create that lock-in that will enable maybe large companies to continue to stay very relevant, because if you change your chat interface, you lose all the memory, and that's very bad. And for agents, again, all these signals, how can you find another agent? This is called discovery. How can you trust another agent? This is like mechanism for trusting other agents. How can you pay other agents? All these important signals that for us are not interesting. We are irrational. I can't analyze 1 million data points to make a decision to buy something or not. You agents care. So for all these reasons, power plants, of course, energy, and control of economic data, so signals on discovery, are they public, or there is one endpoint to call to understand what's the agent that you can use? The trust is public, I can use cryptography, or I just need to rely a brand. So these two things will in the next decades shape a lot of course, the wealth distribution in democracies and how all these economies look like. And since I can't build power plants, it's not my industry, I don't know anything about that, I focused on the latter, which is why we created ERC 8004. So ERC 8004 is very young. I think something very exciting about everything that we are discussing today is how much everything is very young. So X402 has been like presented for the first time in Denver. This is February. Then A2A has been created in May, if I'm not wrong, but AP2 that Jorna was mentioning is like from September, I think. So ERC 8004, the V1 draft has been shared like less than 2 months ago on the 9th of October. And so it's pretty young. What are we talking about? So if this is the funnel I think that so you decide who you want to interact with, and after having discovered the capability of a counterpart, this is called discovery. Then you decide if you want to trust this counterpart. You communicate, and finally you pay. We identified the first 2 steps of the funnel as, how can I say, underserved compared to the other 2. And we have written an Ethereum, it's an ERC, so you're familiar with ERC. And what ERC 8004 does is to create 3 lightweight registries. One is for identity. You can basically mint an agent. We use NFT 721 as a standard. And you point to an off-chain file that can be on IPFS or any also centralized storage, where you advertise your capability and you link to your endpoints. For example, A2A endpoints, MCP endpoints, your wallet, your ENS name. And so in practice, the fact that you are that agent with that name, with that image, with that description, with that endpoint is public, in the sense that it's public good. There is not even one human being on the planet that can stop any other human from discovery that you have deployed that agent and that has that features. This also, yes? You don't know that. It can be synthetic, which is fine because also the correct data can be synthetic.
But will you transact potentially with synthetic data, right?
Yes. Yes. That's the second part that is trust. For discoveries is permissionless, so we doesn't mean anything. The smart contract doesn't doesn't require any.
There could be a bad actor that pretends that there is a.
Yes.
There could be a bad actor that pretends that the data is validated, but it's actually synthetic data, right?
Which data?
Let's say that I wanted to transact with the tool, and or like train my model, and I want to buy a data set from an MCP, right? Like the data inside the MCP could be a synthetic data, fake data. How would an agent know not to transact with a specific vendor?
Thanks to trust. So regarding registration, what you're saying is very true, and that's true for any registration system unless you do some manual check. What we focus about is making sure that the data is public. In terms of trust, we establish trust in 3 ways: through reputation, so anybody can give reputation signals to other entities, which brings another topic, which is how can you trust the reviewer. So you have a recursive review. It's a distributed reputation problem. So what is already happening is that we basically have, you trust the reviewer. So you have a watchtower, you have a node that gives a feedback, for example, gives a feedback on the success rate of an endpoint, the total amount of revenues made since inception. So you have a reputation around the reviewer, and that's reputation. So how you choose a restaurant when you need to pick one or the other. The second is based on staked inference. So you have a set of nodes, and Layer is the project that is implementing this, a set of nodes that is taking money, that reruns the inference and confirm it or not. So subcall our validation registry with a binary outcome. And if they misbehave, they can be slashed. And the third and last is trusted execution environment. So it's HSM hardware, it's an hardware security mechanism that we have on our phone that basically signs, so the chip producer signs that given that container image, that was the output, which is not perfect as well, but the trust model is as far as you trust NVIDIA or Intel and the container image, which needs to be open source, otherwise it doesn't make any sense, you can trust the output. So what 8004 does is not solve the problem of are humans bad, do they put bad data on chip? What we do is making public the signals of where you advertise your capability and all the trust signals. That can be all, you can have way to attack all the 3 ways, by the way. But what we firmly believe is that by making all this data public, first of all, we will have an entire ecosystem of people that will decide how to aggregate data, instead of all these silos platform that somebody is trying to use, where you are the only one that can check the reputation data and decide if it's fake or not. And regarding the discovery, everything is portable. So a funny thing, so if you look at the agents, the nascent agent space in the last year and a half, many identify the agents by where they are. Like, I'm sure you have heard, like the agents of Virtuals, the agents of Eliza, which is a bit weird, right? With this system, every agent is it just pops up in all the explorers. Okay, I've already like gone through like the three kind of trust models. When you have like low stake consumer services like creator agent, so we all use social AIs to publish content on social media and write content, I think. For these kind of use cases, reputation could work. You spend 1K per month for your creator agent. You don't like it anymore, you can like swap it. Same for gaming, planning agents to book your trip. You don't need like a huge collateral to decide that you want to try an agent and plan your weekend. Style agent. Second category, when you have money at stake, the stake security inference example that I was making with Layer is perfect for trading agent, which are currently the most advanced segment of maturity in terms of PMF for agents, with projects like Zi-Fi, Giza, and Bond Credit, and many others. And third category, all the T example that I was making. Here you have example of your electronic health records, but I would say that in general, every time you have private data coming from multiple parties that needs to be blended together, or auditability, in both cases, T could make sense. So there is no one solution that fits all, and these three models haven't been built from scratch from like the 8004 authors. They're like leveraging what the community is already building and creating a framework that makes all this like public. And I would say also discussed. So the main goal of it, the main achievement I'm satisfied of 8004 is not like the protocol itself, it's just technical stuff, you can say it's good, but what happened in terms of excitement, the fact that we are discussing around these topics. To arrive where? I think the final goal is having a web of agents and not an agents app store. We tend to forget, like when we did good things, well, web of agents, I was too young, but the app store, I remember that. And when we did bad things, bad as like ecosystems. And the fact that you can just, without any intermediation, reach out to any website because you have this not blockchain-based, but distributed system called DNS that converts a name to an IP, and then you can like sell. It's great. And it would be great to have like the possibility for everybody to reach out, not for everybody, for humans, but also for every agent to reach out to any agents and achieve the same versus having like a bunch of companies intermediating this. We have now like 1.3 K people in our group that are around 900 companies. These are a bunch of them. We are like working closely with the complementary protocols that we have discussed earlier that are focused on other parts, like of course payments and agentic commerce. If you want to learn more, another interesting link I think is this SDK and these docs in general, which goes a bit into details. It's one I think of the best resources that we have built to make 8004 actionable. It's still in testnet. We plan to go to mainnet in the next couple of weeks. And it will be on many VM chains. We are collaborating with, I have to say, like 10 ecosystems that are interesting of having it on top. Not just EVM, actually. Solana shared that they're like shipping this soon, I don't know when. And thank you for your time. And I'm on Signal, Telegram, and X.
Awesome. Do you have time? You want to take a couple questions, or did you want to take any more questions, Marco?
Sure.
Yeah. Do we have anyone that had questions about the presentation over here?
Awesome presentation, thank you. So it looked like you were going in a single direction in discovery. Are you looking at bidirectional discovery for companies that have something to sell? So not necessarily agents that are only by the lab and all these other different agents. So they're discovering, right? What about the other way where, DSP and RTB are going away? How are agents going to be discovering who wants to find them, the data that they have to sell?
You can sell what you want with this current model. So you can register and say that you can sell whatever you want. So it's
Later. Never mind.
no. Please, maybe I didn't get the.
Okay, so ads in a request to bid, you
Oh,
have a
ads.
singular direction, and you're looking for bid shading, you're looking at targeting people that want to buy your data, want to buy your product, right?
Sure.
So right now,
On the
we're
demand
talking
side,
a lot
okay.
about singular direction. It's like, and keeping that safe, but as he was mentioning, how do you know that you are something that has real data, you have a real product to sell, but you have something that you want to sell and you want to find consumers and other agents that want to buy your product or
Yes,
data.
the system is now designed for the discovery of who is willing to sell, basically, and not of who is willing to buy. And it would require completely different architecture because the information of who wants to buy is somewhere else, is on the device of who wants to buy. And if this is out of scope, I really think that this is part also of how all this will be monetized. So as I was saying, who is top of funnel and controls the distribution with humans? We're now talking about humans. We'll have a huge power because it will be able to get the best offer from open systems like this one, do the match with intents, and take potentially a fee.
Right, but in an open economy, it's not just the purchaser that'll have an agent. There's the companies that will also have an agent. So in a true open economy, you'll have a bidirectional discovery that needs to happen.
Yes, any agent of buyer can connect to 8004, download all the prices, decide what to buy, negotiate, and
One more question.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. So you're talking about how kind of the watchtowers, right? And then you might have some sort of validators, staking that would essentially oversee some of these protocols. Do you mind digging further into that? Because I think kind of answers some of these questions is pretty interesting.
they are not mandatory. You can also just having agents registered. Watchtowers are, I think, very useful for the reputation registry. So we were answering to the question, how do you know if the reviewer is reliable? And what will happen, as is already happening with blockchains with Oracle connectors, is that you will trust who is the signer of the signal. And I think that short term, so all this stuff short term will be applied to what's already working, which is mainly what we now call services and not agents. Today, the number of agents that are making money is very limited. When you look at the X402 numbers, and that's totally fine. I think it will be the same with 8004. They're mainly related to what we now call services or APIs. And so the reputation signals will be stuff like response time, success rate, amount of revenue since inception, for example, through X402. So I think that this will be the first reputation signals that we will use. And you will have off-chain components that post them online, that we could call watchtowers if we were around in 2017 and we liked the name, but we could call just them watchers. That's phase one. For more advanced stuff like recursive distributed reputation, so you're not a watchtower, you're like anybody, or you're you, and your opinion is more strong than his opinion because many more people think that you are relevant. I think we will need to wait more time. And well, sorry, just one last thing on this. Few projects, not many, are working on this on staking, but of course helps. So basically, your opinion is more valuable if you're staking more, but I can challenge you, and if you were wrong, you lose the money. And this is like part of general Web3 similar tax problems. That,
All right, let's give Marco a huge round of applause.
Thank you.
Marco is just doing some great work there. Thank you so much. All right, so next up is me. All right, let's do this. All right, how you guys doing? You guys having a good time or what? Yeah? All right, cool. So my name is Kevin Jones. I'm a developer relations engineer for Agentic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Ampersand SDK, which is a kind of an additional tool that you can use to build agents with Ampersand, or you could just build just X402 powered agents with it as well. You don't need to use Ampersand. But we wanted to create this SDK just as like a way to show off like use cases and examples, and also just give all the tooling to make it easy for you to build an agent. This is open source for about, I think, 3 weeks or so. So you guys can scan the QR code here, or you can go to the Agentic GitHub. But essentially, the first implementation that we did was a Google A2A powered agent with ADK integration, which is what I'm going to be showing off here in a little bit. And we also recently added TypeScript as well, so you can do an example MCP server integration with LangChain or with FastMCP. And so there's some really cool examples in there. We'll kind of dive into those in a little bit. But again, the first example that we went to market with was A2A, which is, I think you guys have all been here the whole day. This is where I would normally kind of dive into what A2A is, but I think everyone kind of has an idea of what that is. And then again, it uses Agent Development Kit, which is a great tool for if you're building agents and you want to be able to debug, and specifically for X402, it's very useful to be able to trace and look at all of the interactions that your agents have made between each other. And so that's part of the core component as well. And again, so yeah, it is Python and TypeScript. The Python is for basically essentially showcasing how to do Google A2A and use ADK, TypeScript for MCP. It also has smart account integration, so you can use externally owned accounts for the agent, or you can build smart accounts using ERC 3009 and EIP 1271. And it also has client and server components, and it has this treasurer pattern, which basically allows you to set up like spending limits and basically guardrails around what your agent can do. So yeah, let's just dive into it. So I know we're behind schedule, but let's try to kind of go through here as we can. So again, this is the Ampersand SDK. Again, it's on GitHub. If you come down here, there is a link to each of the different documentation. Right now, I think all the documentation, is all in GitHub. And so if you want to like dive into each one of the examples, you can kind of see. So there's like a quick start. So we're using UV, which is basically just a Python package manager tool. And you can essentially install a specific version of Python with that. So it's pretty easy to do. So you'll need to have UV installed on your machine if you wanted to do this at home. And then you can just basically specify which version of Python to use. For everything we've been doing is 3.13. So I've gone ahead and already did that. And then you need to basically install the dependencies. So again, you do that with UV. Can you guys see that okay, by the way? Yeah. And so what this is going to do is just install all the packages. It's similar to like if you're familiar with yarn install or npm install, same kind of thing. But it's going to install all the dev dependencies. And then there's a starting env example file that comes with in here that is just basically stuff that you need to pre-fill out. We'll go into what that is and what you need here in a little bit. And then there's really just two commands to run the demo, the example. One, to spin up, so you guys learned a lot about A2A. In the case of this particular example that I'm going to be running, we're going to have a seller agent that's basically selling access to Google tools. And then we're going to have a buyer agent that's going to have the ability to go out and communicate with that other agent that is X402 power enabled that will be able to pay for stuff. This example here is to do it over the command line, but we're also going to be using ADK web to show that off, okay? And then if you click on this, this will go into more detail on the Python SDK. Just gives a little full-blown example. We're actually going to go through this a little bit as well, but you can see here where we have these like core concepts of the treasurer. And the very basic implementation in there that is in the example is what we call it like a naive treasurer. So it really just has this very basic like, hey, this is how much it costs to get access to this agent. But you can use a more advanced treasurer if you choose in there as well. And I think it's the standard X402 payment flow, which I think you guys kind of already know, but it's this 402 payment required. And then the treasurer basically authorizes the payment, and then the agent can then inject that into the request. And then once that verification happens, then it will serve that data. So let's just go ahead and do it here. So I have a folder here. So I'm going to clone this repo. So let me come up here. Okay, so git clone, boom. So this is going to check out, we're just going to use the main branch. Actually, I think there's some other branches, but we're going to use the main branch. We don't need to do anything special. We're going to install Python version 3.13 if we don't already have it, which we should, it is. I'm going to go into that ampersand SDK here. Can you guys see that okay, by the way? Yeah, in the back? Can you guys see? Okay. And then we're going to install the dependencies. So again, we're to basically do UV sync and install the dependencies here. So UV package manager is like super fast, so it has everything already done. That's really quick. It has some caching support in there. And then let's load this up in Cursor and just take a look real quick. By the way, if you're not using Cursor, you should be using Cursor. It's amazing. Okay. Okay, so if we come over here and we look inside the SDK, there's basically two folders, one for Python and then one for TypeScript, right? So it just depends on what you want to build. Again, the Python is the Google A2A example, and it's got all of the SDK components in it. Same thing goes for TypeScript. There is a packages folder that has all of the source for the TypeScript, but we're going to be focusing on the Python today, so we're kind of be in this Python directory. And then we're going to take a look at the env example, which is right here. So you'll need to get, if you want to do this, you'll need to have a Google API key because we do have a Gemini-powered agent. So you'll need to get that. On the actual page, if you go all the way to the bottom, all the links to get all the keys are right here. So it's pretty easy if you want to replicate that on your own. And then, yeah, so then you'll also need a Open API key as well if you want to use the TypeScript. But in this case, we're using Gemini. And there's also some other stuff for LangChain which you don't need to use. You can just focus on using the A2A stuff here. And then you'll need a buyer private key. So there's different ways to do this, but I would recommend using ampersand to do it. You can just go to ampersand, app.ampersand.ai. If you're building agents and you want to get access to that, fill out the request. There's other ways to generate a key, but you'll need to put a key in there. And then you need an address of where you want to send the funds to as well. So you need basically like your seller agent needs to have a address to receive those funds. And so this could be like any wallet you own, like an externally owned account or something like that. And you'll put those in. So in this case, I'm just going to use my existing, what's it called, env file to make this easy. Because I don't want to like, dig through everything. So I'm going to grab this env file here and just place it in the directory in here. I'm using, so in the documentation, you'll see that one of the options is to use like to load the environment variables with dir env, which is like a tool for loading env variables. You can do that however you want, but you'll need to load those into your shell. So I think it's kind of goes into how to do that somewhere here. It used to tell you here, but I don't see it. But you just need to load those environment variables in. And then, sorry, here we go. And then this command right here is to run the seller agent, okay? So we're gonna grab that whole command and I'll kind of explain what it does here, okay? So we're gonna use the UV tool to load up the Python examples directory and run the seller agent, which is just a Python-based application on localhost that is ADK supported and enabled on port 8001, okay? So this is gonna do the build process for the agent, and then it's also gonna run the agent in one command. So it might take a second for it to do because it needs to install the packages and then build it. We'll give that a second. There it goes. Okay, so that's going to spin up the first agent, the seller agent, okay? I've already basically put in that environment variable my private key, and I've already put in the seller address of where to receive funds, and I also put in the, what else did it ask for? I'm trying to remember. The Google API key as well. So that seller agent is ready to go, and it's listening on port 8001, okay? Then in this other window, we're going to go into the same folder. So now we need to spin up the buyer agent. And so we want to use ADK, so I can show you guys that, okay? So let me get the command for that, this other terminal. It's not in the documentation because the documentation actually shows you how to use the command line to run a query. So you could do something like this where you just echo like, hey, give me who the President of the United States is, and then pipe that to this command, and it will do it over the command line. But I want to show you guys how to do the ADK web version. So I'm going to do that like this. So I'm going to run the example, and I'm going to run the web interface, in this case, for the buyer. And so this will run my ADK web on port 8000, okay? Cool, so now I have my seller agent and my buyer agent up. So let's go ahead and go there. Oh, did I not copy it right? Oh. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is what Agent Development Kit looks like. One of the cool things about Agent Development Kit, again, is the tracing functionality. So we want to just ask like a very basic question that actually, let me show it off first before I actually ask the questions. So let's go to the what I've been spinning up. So in the examples directory and in the source directory, and then in the A2A, there's two folders, one for the buyer, one for the seller. So let's look at the seller first, okay? So the seller agent is exactly this. It is a Python Google A2A powered agent that has a specific name, which is like, it's kind of like its, its name. It has a price, so it has a callback function or callback object inside of it, which requires x-row2, and it has a price set, and it has the chain that it wants to receive the funds on, right? And then the address to send the funds is coming from that environment variable that I mentioned, right? So this is defining exactly what the agent needs to be paid to get access to the tool. And then here we can define the model, a basic description, and then the instructions for another agent to query it. And then these are the tools that it has access. So it's a very basic agent that just does a Google search. That's it. The buyer is in here, and his agent.py is a lot simpler, but basically it just has a private key that gets loaded. So this is the private key that gets loaded in the agent so that it can utilize the ampersand SDK, the treasurer functionality, and all the functionality that comes with ampersand, okay? So I've loaded both, they're running, so now I should be able to answer one basic question. What is the tallest building in San Francisco? Does anybody know? What's the tallest building? Of course, it's easy. But we'll ask that, and there it goes. So it gave me the fact. We got that back. But what's cool here, we can go into the events tab right here, and we can look at this particular event, and we get like a trace, basically, of everything that happened. So it's really, really useful if we want to go in here and, debug something that's not working, right? We can basically figure out, okay, well, this is when the payment was required, and we can see that it's an exact scheme on base Sepolia, and you need to spend 1,000 Wei in USDC, which is basically 0.001. And yeah, this is the way that, this is the resource to basically do verification. This is who you need to send the payment to, and this is the asset and the name of the asset, right? And then we can go down further and we can see where the payment was submitted, right? So this is really useful for like debugging. If we were to come down here, we'd be able to see the entire trace of what happened. And you can also do it like visually as well, I think. At least I thought you used to be able to. Oh, here's the response data as well. Oh, those are undefined. I don't know why. I used to show some, like if you have a more complex setup, I think a diagram will show you exactly what needs to happen if you have like multiple agents talking to each other, which is also very cool. But it worked, right? And we can come over here to our terminal, and we can also see right here that there was a payer. And if we were to look here on this payer address on base Sepolia scan, let's do it. We should see that a payment was made from this account. There it goes, 1 minute ago, right? So 0.01 USDC. So a pretty good, like, fair way to like build a Google A2A agent. It's very lightweight. Yeah, it comes with everything you need. And yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we wanted to chat about. So yeah, so give it a try. If you have questions, if you guys need access to ampersand, if you're building agents, come talk to me or someone from the Edge and Node team. We'd love to like hear what you're building. But other than that, I think, I guess we can ask some questions. We might have like a couple minutes for questions. Can someone grab the mic, actually, since I can't do it? Does anyone have any questions?
Starting off, thank you for presenting. My question right now, I guess the only one I have right now is, how many agents can you load on it right now, like at once? Is it based off of like hardware or what you got in the, or is it based off of like like the cloud and compute?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't really tested it for that. That's interesting. I think it would definitely be hardware driven, right? I think and probably your Linux operating system, how tuned it is, open file descriptors is probably going to be an important thing. But I would imagine you could do thousands of agents easily. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, do we have to be on a private beta list? I just tried to sign up.
Yep.
Okay.
Right now it's private beta, but we can definitely get you access. Just come talk to me, and we can get you access. Yeah.
Question over here.
Yep.
Thanks. It's like, how do you think about as a seller, like creating value? Because that's like a Google search, which is free. Like, do you have intuitions about putting that together? I'm only like somewhat technical, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, obviously this example is very, very basic. Like you're not going to pay to get access to Google search. Actually, the demo that Rodrigo did was actually really good because it utilized like the subgraph MCP server or like, so yeah, I visualize like the more autonomous data access, the better for like agents or access to, yeah, any API, right? Sure. Like Kevin often talks about like replacing the API key. Like anything you need an API key. Yeah. It should be thought about with X402.
Cool, thanks.
Got one here.
Yep. Forgive me, but I'm trying to wrap my head around or understand why we're providing the credentials for both the buyer and the seller side at this moment.
Yeah, because there's two agents, right? So we have, so actually there's no seller private key. Sorry, I maybe misspoke, but the seller does not have a private key loaded, just the buyer. Uh-huh. So in the ENV example, yeah, I just showed, because it's one ENV file for both agents. That's why. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was trying to rush through it, so sorry if I didn't explain that good enough, but cool. Any more questions? Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we're going to do a fireside chat. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
No, you're fine with that.
Yeah.
And all the QR codes are their LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to connect with any of the presenters today, you can scan their QR code and connect with them on LinkedIn.
Oh, we lost some video. Oh, you're swapping? Oh, oh was there, we the same one? No, it's good, right? 4? Or are we going to? Yeah.
Rodrigo, you going to go up?
All right, Jordan, Marco, and Kevin, please come to the stage. Woo! We're just waiting on Marco. I'll give him a minute. There he is. Oh, okay, awesome.
Welcome.
So I think, first of all, thank you. Let's welcome our awesome speakers today. Great job, guys. So I think it makes sense first to maybe like open it up for the, because this is all about you guys, right? You guys are building the future of AI here. I would hope that you guys might have some questions for us. So let's just open it up to you guys first for a couple questions. And then I also have some questions prepared, but I want to make sure you guys get the most out of it. So please raise your hand. We have a question.
Swag on the line. Swag on the line.
Oh, yeah. Oh, by the way, we're giving away some
mystery
stuff.
Prizes.
I saw Ken's hand first. He gets the first one. Wait for the mic if you can.
If you can.
If you can.
His name's Ken.
If you can.
If you can.
Is there any centering on any digital ID standard? Or is we just working with just accounts right now on different networks, et cetera, and just having a gray list, et cetera, et cetera?
If that's directed to
the group in general.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Is there a digital ID standard that is being addressed? I mean, obviously you got a registry and you're going to be gray listing and working with different account IDs, I guess. Are there different, what's around agent ID and account ID? Are there efforts in that regard?
Yeah, there are a lot of competing identity standards today. And so one of the kind of explicit design goals with the V2 version of X402 is to enable people to plug in different identity schemas through extensions. There's a lot of cool stuff happening kind of in the ZK space. There's a layer 1 protocol, Concordium, that had like native identity that built an X402 demo yesterday. Apple's been doing some cool stuff with digital passports. And so I think what we want to do at this stage is kind of enable experimentation around identity broadly within the open protocol from an X402 perspective.
Next one, right there.
I'm going.
See ya.
Happy holidays.
Sorry.
That's fine. You go ahead, go.
Leading off the identities example, I suppose like if we're doing these registries with the attestations and intents, wouldn't this also be the perfect time to assign some sort of serialized identification layer to the agents or the tool calls themselves? So we had some sort of like backwards attribution of like users' contributions or developer contributions or so on and so forth. Like I'm mainly from the music industry, so I think of like the way that we handle derivative works. And in an agentic economy, most of this is, just because it's derivative doesn't undervalue like the new creation that it is, but it's built off the backs of the work that has came before it. So in this new economy, it's kind of an opportunity for us to like interweave into the standard a way of attributing the people who helped to lay the foundation in the developer community. So is there any thoughts for the panel on that, like attribution layer?
I think it's not in the scope of what we are trying to achieve to like converge on one specific identity standard. There are like many. We are really trying to do our best to enable all of them and converge on how to advertise them. In the case of 8004, of course, the DID is specifically one of the endpoints that we suggest. In DID, you have a custom resolver, so you can really do a lot of stuff. But I think that it's the right approach also in general of the industry not to try to pick one because it would be just impossible. And actually what I've heard is that we will soon have like a a unified way to advertise the agents in terms of card, which would be huge, but still pointing to multiple potential identities. And I think that that's actually a value.
Thank you all so much for the contributions that you're making to the
Mic's
space.
not on.
Oh,
It is.
hello? Check, check. All right. Sorry. Thank you all so much for the contributions you're making to the space. It's like watching Trustless Agents Day IRL. So I live streamed it. So this is really cool. Thank you guys. Just curious, like for X402 commerce, is it more important for agents to be protected from buying broken APIs for $50, or is it more important for the sellers? I'm sorry, is it more important for the agents to be protected from buying broken APIs for $50, or for the sellers to get a bad agent that gets stuck in a retry storm? What's more important for the protection of the space, essentially, and for the growth of the ecosystem? They're both important. Both equally important? I mean, they're both important in different ways, and they're both, I think, key areas to solve for, to build guardrails around. Just two sides of the same equation.
Thank you. Had a question? And happy holidays.
Thank you. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for my gift. Question on for everyone up there: how important is privacy within agents and adoption, and are there any limiting factors regarding that?
I mean, privacy is very important, and it's an active area of research. I think with the agentic protocols, privacy plays more into the underlying kind of on-chain network construct, more so than X402. And so if privacy is enabled on Ethereum, if it's enabled on other layer ones, then that gets built in natively. And so it's a problem, I think, more tangentially on the on-chain part of the stack.
Did you want to say something, Rodrigo?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these questions are really kind of on point, just even earlier in the day. These are all areas of deep research and discussion. Again, this is like early, and there's a lot of smart people convening and talking and working on these problems, because we're all aware of, as you start to extrapolate out in the future, we all converge on, okay, this is going to be a problem, or this is going to be a problem, or how are we going to handle this? So most everyone is kind of asking the same questions and working on it, and solutions are emerging. There isn't quite yet an answer on each of these things, but I guess what we can say is like it's an active area of being worked on and looked at for sure. Just coming from Buenos Aires a couple weeks ago, there was an entire day on privacy. I mean, it was a whole day of like the leading thinkers and speakers on that alone, and then there was a whole Trustless Agents Day. So yeah, there's lots of people around the world like talking and working on these things actively. But it's great that everybody here, whether you're immersed in it or not, we're all converging on the same things. Yeah, we need a global massive group chat. Yeah, there are, and yeah, there are on Telegram and on all these different places. I guess what's the best way for like people to get engaged in the conversation if they want to? What's that? Pull requests. Yeah, GitHub pull requests.
Did you want to say something, Marco?
Yes, regarding privacy on payments, I totally agree that should be solved at the chain layer. I've seen a bunch of projects with in regards to X402 spawning out new addresses for each payment on the agent side, server side, so you can like connect them with the same agent, unless the agent moves the money somewhere else. By the way, this has also like convex lashes, because this is often used to define the reputation of the agent, the fact that it has received a lot of revenues or some revenues. So this is regards to payments. Discovery, no, we're not thinking about privacy because you want to like your data to be public. Reputation, same. While for validation, since you like elect the validator, you can totally encrypt with asymmetric cryptography the payload that is required to rerun the inference. And so what the third-party observer sees is that the validator receives something and then returns a yes or no, but not the content. So for T and for stake security, inference privacy is like from an architectural perspective already here.
We have a question here, Justin.
Yeah. So I'm building browser agents, and I noticed that there's still like pushback on like what browser or agents can do online. Like bots always have like a bad perception online. I'm wondering with the introduction of agents going beyond and like actually making purchases for people, are there any pushbacks that you're seeing? Maybe regulatory or like, who are the players who are pushing back and what are their reasoning for that?
Yeah, I think with the regulation and I mean, with purchasing, with agents not being deterministic is like a huge like trust issue. And so I think that's why AP2 is really trying to mitigate that as much as possible with all of these mandates and with the kind of issuing of these like payment credentials. So the bank and the issuing and anyone who has any liability associated with the agents, that they are able to develop that trust before the final moment when they're able to like relinquish those funds or actually allow for the payment to land. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of scrutiny, a lot of pushback around all of that. And that's why I think these protocols are necessary to be adopted by like as many people as possible to like encourage growth in that space and to trust for those systems.
Cool, I think we had a question back there.
So I asked this question to Jordan that I posed to all of you. What do you think about the future of just like hardware at this intersection? So for example, like WorldCoin, obviously claim to fame that Sam Altman was like a big backer, right, of them. But I'm also just thinking about broader edge devices. My background's in AR, VR, and spatial computing. So I'm trying to think of like, what will Meta AI glasses or, well, Google XR, a bunch of my friends were, on the teams at Oculus, they all moved to Google. And so I was pre-anticipating, like, what do we expect for the protocol layer as it evolves, both for like fintech and finance, but also hardware, so that it's, probably projecting a couple of years out, and how you all anticipate developers to look at that ecosystem in open source.
Marco touched a bit on this, but he mentioned TEE, so like trusted execution environment. So really what's going to have to happen is verifiability all the way through all steps of the compute. So like from the data side, so that's what we're working on at Edge and Node with verifiable data at the source from the blockchain, verifying that the copy of the data on the server matches, via proofs. Then the compute itself and the environment is trusted. And like today, for example, you're running a model, and how can you be sure that you have to trust like a third party that is running actually like GPT-5 versus GPT-4, right? So I believe that there will be a push towards more trusted environments for specific applications that require, especially like financial applications or high frequency trading, things like that. They're going to move to like completely verified data, completely verified compute, completely verified isolated environments. So I think that's one area of hardware. But in terms of like consumer interface hardware, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think agentic payments also can help bootstrap better kind of distributed networks around things like inference. And so the key problem with why we have kind of centralized versus distributed inference today is it's largely a coordination problem. And so if we can incentivize like latent hardware capacity across the world to share its resource in a secure way, I think that becomes more and more appealing and possible, especially if it's verifiable. And I think the same is true with like, you mentioned IoT, like edge data feeds. Like maybe I want to figure out what the weather is in the Presidio, and there's some like verified edge device that's measuring the temperature, pay a cent, call it, get the exact weather. Those types of schemas, I think, become more and more possible in a X42 driven world.
Hi, thanks for the talk today. I wanted to ask a question, like, how would you explain to non-crypto users about why X402 payments are superior to the traditional payments like Stripe, especially when agents like ChatGPT can browse the web and make a payments automatically on the browser? A quick background for this was I'm building a startup that helps ordinary Koreans to onboard an on-chain, and I wanted to build a understand why on-chain matters on the A2A payments will really help me to explain this better.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And, I think there are certain classes of payments that can only really be done with on-chain finance. So those tend to be microtransactions or complex smart contract logic. Generally, on-chain transactions are cheaper than credit cards. So credit card transactions don't often make sense for under like a certain threshold around $5. There's interchange fees. There's risk of chargeback, which isn't present in on-chain. There's PWI compliance. There's a lot of fees that go into credit cards, mainly interchange, and that's not present on-chain.
I have one over here. So my question is for anybody to answer. So it's mostly more around the when the packets are traveling from the buyer to the seller, from the seller to the buyer. I saw that it's going over HTTPS, and I think I saw on the SDK that you guys do everything over JSON, right? It says sending everything over JSON, like all the messages. So my question would be, let's say like I made like an agent that's bad, right? How does your guys, how would like a good agent realize that this is like a bad actor when everything's encrypted? And I know someone previously had mentioned about how, you'd have to put in like an order, you'd have to go through like another method to try to get your money back. But if everything is encrypted, how do you like validate that that's actual like good data?
Yeah, so I guess on the consumer side, like the agent being the demand driver, like the one that's actually paying for the tool, that being a bad actor, somewhat subjective, right? Like, but it'd be the same way that API companies determine what's a bad actor today. It's no different if it's an agent or a human. It's just based on behavioral patterns, and they can choose to, offer or not offer service. On the demand side, that's where I think reputation and eval comes in. It's very similar to search. It's like, is this website information accurate? Is this tool useful? And so I think there's ways to quantify that with evaluation techniques, eval at the language model level, and that's another active area of research.
I'm noticing that a lot of these questions have circled around this kind of bad actor, how do you trust? And so one thing that is built into the credit card networks today is this notion of like chargebacks, right? Like you've got a Visa, it gets used fraudulently, okay, I'm protected against that fraudulent use. So that doesn't exist in this scheme yet. And we actually at Agenode kind of looked into this, like how could we build kind of a payment system that adds that chargeback protection. I think somebody will build it. It just requires like, tens of millions of dollars and like a banking license in every state. But that is something that will probably emerge then is like, okay, I need some protection that if this goes haywire that, there's a mechanism in which I can get my money back. So part of what we do today is like, these are microtransactions, like risk limited, like an ampersand, you say you can't spend more than $1 per day. So you're just kind of mitigating the risk that way. If it does go haywire, you lost a cent, okay. Then it goes into the reputation system that Marco talks about that says, okay, it gets flagged immediately. And so the next time your agent is going out, it's going to look at the cards and what the system, the community is saying about this agent, and automatically it's just they're going to be delisted, or just their reputation score goes down, and they just downranked. And so that's sort of how the mechanism works. So I think given that we're dealing in small transactions, it's a means in which we can like have the community and with reputation to sort of weed these bad actors out quickly.
Yeah. And we're also working on some of the chargeback aspects. There's a Coinbase Commerce Protocol, which is used at Shopify with Shopify's USDC integration. And so if you're interested in research, I'd check out the work that Coinbase has done with Shopify around that.
Hello.
Great talks today. Thank you guys all so much. One question that has come up a lot with a lot of the developers we're working with is where, obviously, it's all early, so compliance is kick the can down the road a little bit in a lot of this. But one question that's come up is how do we know a agent is not a bad actor? Not from just like a bad data perspective, but like a legitimate bad actor, right? So an example would be today, if you want to make a payment, you are probably being processed through many rounds of AML. Depending on what you're using, you've probably done some form of KYC or like given your social security number to get a credit card or something like that. When you're doing things on chain, there's a chance that you could get these assets without going through that. And so how does that play into, for example, like a facilitator, right? They're processing and helping facilitate these transactions, but what if they're processing bad actor transfers? What if an agent is registered and they're, you know, from a terrorist group, something like that? What's kind of just the broader thoughts across both X402 and like A2A? Like how should a developer actually be thinking about protecting themselves and their company from downstream impact from that when regulation on this stuff actually kicks in?
Yeah, it's a great question. For the Coinbase developer platform facilitator, we use all the same risk and security frameworks that we use at Coinbase. And so that includes things like IP filtering. So making sure, you know, the origination of this agent isn't from, you know, sanctioned actor lists. We also have blacklists of certain IP addresses and contract addresses. And so the same risk framework that we use for Coinbase, we apply to the facilitator.
And for AP2, the verifiable credentials aren't dictated, so those are open. So it's up to the agents to decide which agreed upon VCs they're using. So it could be even like requiring like a EU ID to be signing these mandates. So there is kind of a KYC automatically involved with all the mandates being sent.
Yeah, and I think that's where identity and extensions around identity start to play a role as well.
One quick question on that. What is the impact on the world of autonomous agents then? Like, i.e., you can't just have all these autonomous entities that don't have the ability to be maybe compliant with like an EU signer if they're maybe a US-based entity and they don't have access to those credentials. What then happens to this open system?
I mean, I think the base layer of the system is fundamentally open and same principles of what powers HTTP, right? And so, yeah, I think we'll see what happens with autonomous agents. There's not like a lot of regulatory framework because they frankly don't exist yet. Like the proto-digital life form concept that we talked about, it's just starting to emerge. And so we'll see what happens, but it's definitely a fun time to experiment.
Can I pipe in and say maybe one more plug for Google Cloud? So separately, I'm working on 2 other projects with other forensic Web3 customers and working with Mandiant and Google Security to put into you know, SecOps and Chronicle. And so that way, if you build an AI agent on GCP, we can probably plug into our, you know, pre-built security solutions and help protect it from that angle as well. So we're partnering with TRM Labs and Chain Analysis to like bring that next level of Web3 like forensics and protection to the platform.
So I'm actually really new to the 402 protocol. So is it cross-border? So like if I built something here in SF and someone from Europe wanted to make a payment, it'll go through without all the bureaucracy of like payment processing?
That's the magic of blockchains. Yes, that's cool.
I was sick.
We should have recorded this.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's recorded.
That's great.
Thank you. Just a small technical question. I'm just curious, like how the X402 protocol has been able to achieve the no fees transaction. Like, how does it work? I would imagine some nodes has to process.
Yeah. Well, I think no fee, it's like low fee. And there's details about this in the white paper. What the fee that you're paying is the gas fee. The facilitators can sponsor that gas fee and they can recoup their cost on that in other ways. Coinbase, we sponsor the first 1,000 transactions per usage for the facilitator. And so gas fees are extremely low. They're like, I think, what, 1,000th of a cent?
1,000th of a cent.
Yeah, so
0.001.
which is a lot different than like credit card processing fees. And so you're basically just paying the minimal amount to maintain the state of the blockchain. And so like no fee is probably incorrect. It's just, you're just paying the gas fee, which is
Yeah, it was
nominal.
no fee initially because, as he said, Coinbase was sponsoring that. And yeah, they've subsequently said they're going to start charging at some point soon. But yeah.
Yeah, it's still like a fraction of a penny versus a 30-cent transaction fee.
Cool. We have another
And
question.
it's trending towards zero. So gas fees are going, they're getting lower as
Yeah,
well.
there are chains out there like Scale, for example, is doing like a zero. They have a gasless chain, and so there are chains out there that if you're running X402 transactions over them, could be in theory gasless if you're using a chain that supports that.
Question over here.
Yeah, so my question might take us in a bit different direction. So happy to have a sidebar, but how do you see all of this new tech helping with humanitarian efforts? So I'll give a couple examples. St. Jude's Children's Hospital has a large Web3 division looking for crypto fundraising, fundraising on Twitch and gaming and things like that. Another example is refugee relief. And so most refugees do have access to a mobile device, and obviously the main issue right now is 40% of those donations that are intended for refugees don't make it because of bribes and cross borders and all that stuff. So how do you see this new tech helping in those ways?
I think it fits extremely well. I think fundamentally blockchain drives economic freedom for humans. And I think at Coinbase, we believe that economic freedom is really a fundamental human right. We have the right to own our own money. And blockchain enables that through cryptography. And so from like a humanitarian, human rights perspective, now anybody that has access to the internet or has access to drive a private key can create a wallet, can custody funds, can self-custody it. And I think that's the power of on-chain finance. And I think it does fit extremely well with humanitarian efforts. There are a lot of great organizations too that fund nonprofits like the Giving Block and others. Yeah, I think it's somewhat tangential, but I think fundamentally blockchain drives economic freedom.
Question here.
I just wanted to extend on that a little bit. For the 25% of the world that doesn't have bandwidth, how do we move into an 8A economy where the community may have singular access, through a cell phone or a community node? And how would we move that forward when it's not individual, it's more of a community that is doing the purchasing?
Yeah, I mean, communities can own private keys through like multi-sig schemas. I think more and more of the world, I think the question is like, how do we get bandwidth to more of the world? I think there are solutions like Starlink that are tackling that and providing like low Earth orbit satellites to give, high-speed internet to the entire world. So, pretty soon the infrastructure around the internet will be improved.
Maybe adding on that, the efforts that the Ethereum community is dedicating to ETH proofs, if successful, will enable to have what Kevin just mentioned, with a possibility for that smartphone in 10 milliseconds to verify the block, so without losing security. So the energy that the Ethereum community has in decentralization and in making sure that you can join these technologies with very low-end hardware is very important in this sense. Especially when the number of transactions will skyrocket, as we hope.
Hey guys, thanks for everything. It's been a fascinating conversation. I was wondering about the game theory mechanism design elements to having an open system like, if we fast forward 3-4 years, now we have agents talking to each other, right? So the graph, for instance, has very sophisticated design and what's it called? With simulations, what you were mentioning, Marco, right? So is there anyone thinking at that higher level about how you're actually creating a complex system, right, that need to be coordinated? So is anyone thinking about that, or are there any projects that are going down that path?
I mean, coordination is the key problem that blockchain solves. And so I think that was the breakthrough of the original Nakamoto consensus algorithm as an alternative to like BFT or other consensus algorithms, is that you could verify and come to agreement around state of essentially database without the need for central authority. And so game theory definitely being researched. Proof of stake, I think, is an advancement on that as well, having been implemented by Ethereum. And yeah, again, the coordination, the game theory is kind of a key aspect of kind of the on-chain financial construct.
I would say yes in a permission setting. So we don't know exactly what the large labs are doing with agent network, but based on the paper that we can read and like informal information, for sure they are working a lot on agents networks in permission settings. So the big bet, I think, and I haven't seen like many other projects other than ERC 8004, is how can we connect these networks? And I mean, I'm very excited about this. I'm pushing a lot on this. I don't see this as a key topic in the agenda politically. I mean, so I don't know what will be the outcome, but we are like here to try to do the right thing.
Yeah, and it gets somewhat philosophical, like when you start to ask, like, you know, about alignment, for example. It's like, well, yeah, we want the agents to be good. Like, what do we align them towards? How do we define what's good? Generally, it's like, is it satisfying like the marginal utility of the request of the user? That's how I define alignment. But there's a lot of open discussions, especially in the AI circles, around that topic.
Awesome. Any more questions from the crowd? I thought I saw one more hand over there. Behind you.
Thank you. Yeah, again, thank you everybody for our talks. Very, very valuable. I'd like to ask, in addition to agentic payments, is X402 focused on any other use cases?
Yeah, X402 is not just limited to agents. I think it solves a key UX problem around tool usage and discovery, and I went into that in depth during my talk, but it's built into HTTP and it can also be used by humans. I think a great human use case is like doing pay-per-view for articles. Like I get so annoyed when I go to Bloomberg or New York Times and it's like I need to sign up for a subscription. Like I would happily pay 1 cent, 2 cents to view an article. And so I think X402 can complement those kinds of schemas, and you know, it doesn't fundamentally care whether it's a human or an agent. You know, it could very well be a human, you know, processing the transaction.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions on the audience? No? I'm kind of curious. What do you guys think? Maybe we can like go down the line. What do you think that some of the first like use cases for X402 that are going to get mainstream adoption that will help kind of elevate it to the next kind of level? Like what's the unlock, right? What's going to kind of make it succeed?
Yeah, I mean, the microtransactions for articles, I think, is like one of the most common discussed ones. I don't know if that's in play by any developers right now, but that's a very common one that comes up. And then cross-border agent transactions, I think, would probably be like one of the next like large areas that is easily tackled and really mitigates a lot of pain points for a lot of agents that would be transacting across borders.
I think that like any MCP vendor will accept blockchain payment and X402 payment. So you will have like two MCP vendors. One is the payment vendor that will pay with X402. It could be maybe your wallet or also maybe your bank that decide like to jump in the next century, and the MCP vendor of Booking.com or Nike. And we will just not see any of this from our chat and just get our Nike shoes. And I think this will be like, and the other one, yes, is probably B2B supply of data of agents buying APIs, which is what we are starting seeing already.
Yeah, my favorite use case is probably around like content creation and entertainment. And so I think when I think about like what are the key use cases of X402, it's well anything an agent can do where it needs access to proprietary resource, a cloud action, an API, or some data. How can it like chain that together to create something? And video always comes to mind for me. And so like I think the amount of video that's being consumed on the internet, it's only continuing to skyrocket. I think that'll increasingly be AI generated. I think we're gonna like it. I think there's a lot of really funny, entertaining videos. And what I'd really like to see is a creative revolution happen around video generation and AI, similar to how Macromedia and Flash Player drove kind of like the first wave of internet video. And if you grew up in the same era I did, we played addictinggames.com and watched all these Flash Player videos. Like I'd love to see this kind of like creative revolution be spurred through the synthesis of X402 tool calling and content creation.
Just based on my experience here at the house now, there's been a lot of projects and people talking about working on these like agent-fi applications. So where they're using financial data to get alpha and seek an edge and do trading. I think that is also emerging as like a early use case because people go where there's money to be made, and so the market is always seeking an edge and seeking a way to outwit the market. So I've already seen I don't know, I can't even count, but like maybe half a dozen just people within the community here working on projects in that space, also talking, at different conferences, people working in that space. So that seems to be an area of high attention and high brain power.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the futurarchy applications are also really interesting. So because these reasoning models, like they can process information faster than humans, they have probably larger memory windows, but then they can also access data instantly and process it way faster than a human can. Like they'll start to be able to take real-time data signals from the internet, bring that into prediction markets, and then that will drive better forecasting for future events. And this is kind of Robin Hanson's theory of futurarchy. So I think that's also a really cool area that combines markets, data API feeds, trading, and a bunch of areas that we're all interested in.
Awesome. Okay, I think we can ask one more question maybe, and then we can get to the other room and hang out. But my next question is, a lot of the innovation on payments has been focused on like humans, right? Humans making payments the last decade. Now we're in this new frontier, and we've done a lot of work like really fast. Like we've kind of like, I don't know, it's surprising to me how much has been done with X402 in like the last year, right? Or not even a year. What still needs to be done? What's the missing thing? What's the limitations? Like inspire the people in the audience of how they can like take action, take the next step.
Yeah, I think creativity is king here. So we need more people like thinking of novel ways to chain tools together to solve real problems. Again, we mentioned trading, we mentioned kind of media and entertainment. I think those are two great themes to lean into. I'd also dive into the V2 spec and like all the active research that we talked about around verification, reputation, privacy, language model evaluation. That's super cool. What I'm really liking are some of these X402 sandbox environments, like X402 Monopoly, where they'll pit like Gemini versus Claude versus like GPT, and they'll like play Monopoly against each other. I think that X402 can really provide, when you have like a real monetary incentive, real skin in the game, like that's a really interesting eval technique around alignment, because ultimately like what's the goal? Like the goal is utility. Like what's the classical definition of utility? It's money in economics. And so I think a lot of really fun, just things that look like games can actually drive advancements in AI over the long term.
Anyone else? No?
Well, the missing thing is privacy for payments, for sure. And we have discussed a lot about bad actors, compliance. The fact that compliance or regulation could change doesn't impact the fact that the technology is superior. I think they are just like different dimension. It's cheaper, but by far cheaper. If you are at a restaurant that you pay $100, you're probably paying 30, 40 cents of credit card fees versus 1 cent, but will become less and less. And so it's by far cheaper, and also like the interface is so simple. The kind of number of payments that you can have, modality of payments is so complex. Not to mention the finality time. Here is just a function with a couple of inputs, so it's by nature superior, and agents will use this. In terms of regulation, there are many things that we can already do. So like liquidity pool with whitelist, with blacklist, this is already doable. We can change the regulation on the KML when you put we can already do a lot, but we shouldn't like confuse this with the fact that the technology is by itself superior for agentic payments, I think.
Awesome. Anything else you got to add? No? We're good? All right, let's give the speakers a round of applause. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And then I think we'll have Nicole up. She's just going to do last minute here closing.
One more shameless plug for Google Cloud credits for anybody who joined late. We actually have a fantastic program at Google Cloud for our startup program. So feel free to take a screenshot of that and fill out the web form. It will go through our approval process. It's not only GCP funded credits, it's actually training, marketing, and support to help you launch your new company using and partnering with Google Cloud. The other fun thing that you can do is if you go to your browser, you can just type in our Web3 community portal. So we have Google Cloud, our Web3 community portal, and that's a different website. It has access to all of our faucets, validators, partners. We have a sample AI agent in there where you can see hashes, transactions, get some insight into building a custom AI agent. And some more of our product news and announcements for Web3 are specifically on that portal. So yeah, we look forward to partnering with you, and thank you for spending your evening, afternoon with us.
All right, so we are, as we said, going to prepare this room for the party. So we're going to move everybody in the lounge. Feel free to hang out. We're going to have plenty of food, drinks, music, live entertainment. You'll find out who if you stay. So please stick around.